for moving forward. And so just that you are here and sharing your thoughts and your comments is really important to us, and we thank you for showing up. It's great. In that same vein, I know that some of you are here just to learn and listen. Some of you are here because you may be upset about this. Some of you may actually be here in favor. I don't see that happen very often, but sometimes you might be here for that reason as well. And whatever your perspective is, again, we are grateful that you are here and sharing that information and your perspective with that. That engagement, your engagement, is really important to all of us. One thing I do want to emphasize is, as we do hear from each other tonight, and we know that emotions are running high perhaps on this topic, I ask each of us to be thoughtful in the way that we address each other, and that we speak to the issue, the problem, and not to individuals, and that we really, I think we are all people who love Laramie, and so if we can engage in this in a civic and civil manner, that would be wonderful. And so I encourage you to share your information and your thoughts, but ask that all of us address each other in a manner that we are working to solve problems. So with that, this is a work session. We're going to open this up with public comment. The public comment, though, that we are going to open up with is on non-agenda items. So if you are here to speak on the surface water drainage fee, or on our second work session, which is the Laramie recreational vehicle and trailer parking update, you will get a chance to speak on that. I just ask that you hold tight on that comment until we have covered those topics. So to start with, if there's anyone, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to let you know that we did have one participant sign up for none.
Perfect. I saw that Christopher, and I'm probably going to just butcher this last name, Daly, it is signed up for a non-agenda item. Feel free to please come forward and share your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Only Europeans usually get it right on the first try, but you were close. I'm here to speak about 12-step programs and the harmfulness that can come from inconspicuous dogmatism. Now, while that might not seem like a very significant thing, it really is, and I'd like to explain and provide some example as to why that can be really harmful to the community, to the public safety, since we have 12-step programs that do meet here. I became clean and sober in Anchorage, Alaska, July 18th, 1985. So I've been clean and sober 40 years. I just celebrated about 4 days ago. When I first got sober, I came in and off a suicide attempt. Thank you. I came in off a suicide attempt, and I got into the 12-step programs after that, and I tried to work it as really good as I could. I was very serious. I wanted to stay sober, so I tried to work the steps. But when I got into the sexual moral inventory in the fourth step of a 12-step, I was confused over whether or not homosexuality was moral or immoral, because I'd had relations with both genders when I was drinking and doing drugs, or even younger. So that was really hard for me, because I felt I had to get that right. Is it God's will or is it not God's will? Because the 12-step construct is in capital God, capital G, and Him with a capital H, which is religious concepts. These are religious concepts. It's a Judeo-Christian context, even though it tells people that it's spiritual, which is very misleading, because that's why I went to the 12-step, because I was trying to avoid religion. Okay, and very quickly I'll explain this. I finally concluded with the 12 steps that I was bisexual. But when I was done, the most influential old-timer, he said, no, he said, you don't work the 12 steps of AA. You don't work the 12 steps and conclude that you're a bisexual. That's not the message of AA. And he said, you're welcome to continue attending the meetings, but you're not one of us. I had just come off of a suicide attempt. I was 4 months away from a suicide attempt, and it may have had a lot to do with the homosexual issue, being conflicted over that issue. And so I'm glad that we have the anti-discrimination ordinance here in Laramie, because this applies. When you have 12-step programs and somebody is able to use dogmatism in such a manner as to ostracize an individual because they don't work it to their approval because of the morality involved, then you've got a predicament that needs to be addressed openly. And I'll just close with this: is that regarding the fact that AA does involve religious concepts, the author of the Serenity Prayer, Reinhold Niebuhr, which the meetings open up with, if you look at the on YouTube and you find the Reinhold Niebuhr Mike Wallace 1958 interview, it's particularly thought-provoking in its first 5 minutes or so, with Niebuhr emphasizing the importance of the separation of church and state. So that's important to consider. Thank you, and I'll speak later on the other issue, on the agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there others in the audience or on Zoom who want to speak to non-agenda items? Yes, sir. Please come forward and share your name, Mr. Hershey.
Hi, I'm Ryan Hershey, Laramie City resident. I'd like to speak about mosquitoes. We recently, you guys had a ranch meeting, or a meeting with the ranch manager, where he mentioned, how the mosquitoes start out there. And that's true, because they do flood irrigation, which you put a bunch of water out in a big field where the grass, where mosquitoes lay their larvae, and put that water out there, they hatch. And the next thing you know, we've got clouds and clouds and clouds of mosquitoes. So my issue here is the city owns that land and is doing flood irrigation, so we're raising mosquitoes. We are actively doing things that make mosquitoes happen, make it worse. And at the same time, all of us Laramie City residents are being charged $5 per household to mitigate this mosquitoes. So what are we doing here? Are we trying to get rid of the mosquitoes? Are we trying to raise them? I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's it's like we're trying to do one thing, and we've created another bureaucracy to fight it. So I'd like you guys to think about that, see what we can do. I mentioned at the city meeting recently that I was in favor of the pivot irrigations, because coming from a ranching background, it's much, much more efficient on the water. It doesn't let that water sit out there. It doesn't allow those mosquitoes to breed. My comments in the minutes, they weren't exactly accurate as far as to what I was trying to convey, so I thought I'd like to speak to that to you again, especially since there's a couple of members of council who weren't here at that meeting. Thank you very much for your time. Please consider, though, doing something about that. Let's not flood our fields and cause more problems. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hershey. Come on up, Mr. Henderson. And if you'll state your name for the record, that would be great. Thank you.
My name is Eric Henderson. I inquired soon after June 11th through the 13th, the Wyoming Association of Municipalities, for summaries on important attendance collectively from council. I was wondering if a work session was planned to go over that in preparation for the 2026 upcoming WAM agenda. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hershey. Any other folks in the room to speak on non-agenda items? Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name's Ross Beal, and I live on Polk Street out in West Laramie. And I just wanted to kind of address a situation we have on my particular, where I live. I've been living there for about 40 years. And we built our house when Don Nagel was a councilman, I believe. And I mean, I don't know what it takes for you guys to, for anybody, I'm not saying anybody, but I'm tired of calling the city to come and fix our streets there, and I live between Lincoln and Buchanan, and it's just a constant effort. It's muddle, and every house on that street particularly is flooded. Every time it rains, I got to deal with washing the car. No sense in washing your car, because you can't keep them clean, number one. And I just wonder where all this, what do you want to say, these things you want to do with grass and all this money that we're going to spend. I would be happier than hell to pay for that extra money to do something with that street. And it's just that street between Polk and between Lincoln and Buchanan. It is bad. And I'm tired of all this mud. Everybody's bringing it. I try to go up there and fix it. Everybody in my neighborhood's trying to level some, but I think that the road is too high up. And I always I've paid people to go up there and try and fix it so my driveway doesn't get so much water, but it seems like it's getting worse. And the whole neighborhood across the street, then people have done the same, and just trying to help ourselves. But I was told by a certain person, well, I can't remember, but they were working on a broken water line that they had there, and they worked on it, and they put all their dirt, piled it up right next to my fence, and then I asked them if they would go and knock it down, and they didn't do it, and they said that was my job. I was responsible for that. And I did. I had my neighbor came across with this bucket, and he cleaned it up. But it seems like, you guys want to, we want to jack up everything, and nothing's been done in West Laramie. We're garbage out there. It's just, I don't know how to really talk real good in front of you guys, but I don't know. I'm not happy with what's going on out there. And you guys are sure spending a lot of money everywhere else. And where in the hell's West Laramie? Where are we at? That's what I'd like to know, but well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing your concerns, Mr. Behill. Others on non-agenda items? Anyone online? Okay. All right, so moving on, we will start with our first topic, which is the surface water drainage refresher. And this was brought about, we have a lot of new council members who we wanted to share some information with, wanted to also share some more information with you all. And so we'll just get this kicked off with Director Webb. Or just kidding. Director Japp, welcome.
Your Honorable Mayor, members of council. Tonight we have Aaron Murray and Elizabeth Treadway here from WSP Engineering to give us a recap of our surface water program. So with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Thanks, Eric.
Welcome, Mr. Murray.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Aaron Murray. I work for WSP here in Laramie. We've been asked by the city to prepare the stormwater funding feasibility study that led to the surface water drainage utility. And just here to give you a recap on kind of the steps that we went through in that program. Let's see if I can advance. So we'll talk about the background on the study, the stormwater focus group that was developed as part of the process, the final program recommendations, the GIS data that was used to determine impervious area and the analysis that was done on that, the rate structures and options that were developed, a rate model and analysis of those options on the rate, a summary of the ordinance, and then we've got some frequently asked questions that we can go through. So please anytime stop me if you have any questions. So this effort started with phase one, which was in the 2021 to 2022 timeframe. And though it's hard to read all the little boxes here, these represent all the steps to the formation of a surface water drainage utility. The red area represents what phase one, the feasibility study, included. And that was really establishing, was there a need? What would be the level of service that the city would want to provide, and does it make sense to go forward? And
Just a minute, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it turns out they can't hear you very well in the back. I don't know if our volume folks can, or our tech folks can help get that volume up. Sorry, folks. Just 1 second here. Some background music. Awkward silence. Okay, should we try again?
Let's try again. They've tried to make a few adjustments.
Okay.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, does that sound better? Testing, testing, testing.
Speak up just a little bit more, maybe.
Sure. Does that work? Does that sound better? Maybe if I just get closer to the mic here.
Perfect, okay.
No, unfortunately, it's high
It's at
as
the
it
highest.
goes. Yeah.
Just too tall. That might be better. All right. Yeah, that kind of feels cooler, yeah. So I can wander around. So as mentioned, the items in the red box represent phase 1 of the surface water drainage funding feasibility study, and the rest is in phase 2. Phase 1 really started with a goal of sustaining investment in the existing stormwater infrastructure and services while mitigating flooding and improving water quality. There's a recognized need for an improved level of service as a result of several master plans that the city had conducted starting in 2010, continuing in 2014, 2017, and finally 2022, which together identified about $130 million in capital improvements that would be needed to safely convey runoff through the city. Of that $130 million, about $30 million was designated as the highest priority item. So you'll hear high priority mentioned a few times, and that's what we're referring to as those top level projects, about the top third of that backlog. Current staffing levels in the city were unable to provide proactive maintenance. They were mainly on a reactive basis for the stormwater program. When there was a problem, then they'd go out and look at it. By that time, it likely already had failed, and that's why there was a problem and a call came in. And stormwater quality management was needed to meet current and potential future regulations. As you know, the Laramie River is impaired, and currently now under a watershed management program that could potentially lead to a regulation that might require stormwater monitoring and discharge limits on Laramie's stormwater system. Currently, Cheyenne and Casper have stormwater quality permits, and Laramie has not been rolled into that yet. We quantified the current stormwater expenditures. Those are coming out of the general fund, competing with other general fund dollars. But we tried to extract what is Laramie spending right now on stormwater, and then developed level of service menus that we'll go into a little more detail on, of what does the city want to provide, what level of service, and what would the approximate costs be for that future program. And we discussed drainage fees as a method to distribute those costs among property owners. The basic question was not whether any new revenue was needed, but just what is the best way to distribute those costs. We formed a stormwater focus group, met 4 times in 2023, 2024. This group was about 20 to 25 members of the community, included representation from University of Wyoming, local realtors, Laramie Chamber Business Alliance, Laramie River Conservation District, Albany County, local residents concerned, Laramie Planning Commission, and a number of others that I'm forgetting, but had good representation on that, and really used them to bounce ideas off of, to understand what level of service they wanted to see, to ask them policy questions, to get feedback before we went back to council to say, here, this is what we're hearing from the community. So here's a summary of some of the feedback we received from that group. Expectations of what they wanted from a drainage program was an effectively maintained system. We want safe travel during storm events, resolve those known flooding problems that everybody is aware of. 4th Street, 22nd Street, West Laramie was brought up a lot. Health and safety was a key mission, as well as preventing property damage. They wanted to focus on underserved areas, incentivize green infrastructure practices, and they really wanted a drainage criteria manual to define what the requirements would be in the future. Other input was it might be important to monitor the water quality of discharge, just to understand where does the city need to focus improvements on, and that public education would be important throughout the process. We talked a lot about the level of service, and one of the key things that the group brought up was residents will need to see that the funds are improving the performance in terms of there's less flooding. They'll need to see that things are being done. The streets are being cleaned more often. The pipes are being inspected more often. And those outcomes should be measurable, specific, and reported to the public. So every year they see what is this being spent on, what are the improvements. And the investment in keeping the system functioning will provide immediate benefits was a key feedback. On the financial side, they wanted us to make sure that the impervious area, how that's determined is an important process so that there's confidence in its accuracy. Underserved areas may not recognize the value unless they are seeing benefits. And it'll also be important to explain, since the surface drainage facility fund is no longer pulling general fund dollars, what is going to happen to those general fund dollars now that they're not being taken by stormwater. When we got into preliminary rates, all members felt that the range of rates was reasonable. Some members, it's hard to read that there, felt that they'd be happy to pay the fee since the services provided are needed. And they said the range of rates, I mean, they got into it and were looking up what other communities are charging, and they said the range of rates is in line with what other communities in Wyoming are paying and much lower than other rates across the country. So we'll talk about the stormwater program that came up out of phase 2 in the recommended program.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Lockhart.
Thank you, Assistant Mayor. Aaron, what other communities are doing this in Wyoming?
So currently, Evanston, Cody, Green River, and Cheyenne have passed ordinances, and there are a few others that are in the process of various stages of considering. The program developed a long-term financial plan that wanted to address what's the cost of current services. So that was the first step, as I talked about what is the city currently spending. And that includes the operational expenses, as you know, overseeing projects, overseeing construction, overseeing design, as well as capital expenses. And then what are those enhanced services, more street sweeping, implementing those high priority projects, and then the administration that would go along with such a program. Specific program investments included implementing those master plan projects, starting with those high priority projects. Continuing the city's pipe rehabilitation program, the city currently spends about $150,000 a year in lining stormwater pipes to extend the lifetime of those pipes, and they want to continue doing that. Continue installing new system installation for underserved areas of the city. In a lot of cases, you know, you can't pave a street unless you've got somewhere to take the stormwater. So the city started that process in West Laramie, and now they have a trunk line that can take that water when additional streets are paved. Improving the water quality of the runoff, mainly by focusing on sediment discharge to the Laramie River, as that's the component that DEQ is, the reason it's impaired by the DEQ. And then implement an asset management program. So that's really going from reactive to proactive in managing the city's assets. All right, let's see here. Part of that cost recovery obviously was operation and expenses, as well as the service needs of the operations, capital, and administration. I will jump to this. So this is where it ended up through discussions with focus group staff and ultimately council as the level of service that the city desired. And we had presented 3 options, I'd say: basic, medium, and high. Not that anyone was right or wrong, just different levels of service. And some of them started out at the basic level.
Can I interrupt you
go
real
ahead.
quick? Councilor Newman, sorry, thank you.
Do we have more chairs? We have people standing up in the back. That's all I cared about.
It looks like there are a few seats up front if folks want to make their way up front. Welcome. Come on in. All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so these are the different aspects of a stormwater program, from the asset management, engineering, planning, operation and maintenance, capital improvements, and administration. Some of these the city wanted to start out at a basic level, say engineering planning, which is closely tied with capital improvements, right? You've got the people that oversee those projects and then the construction of those projects. And knowing that the city doesn't have shovel-ready projects immediately, those would start at a basic level, allow the city to do design first, and then ramp up to a medium level when you have projects that can be constructed. Whereas on the asset management system inspection, which is very also tied to the operation and maintenance, they wanted to start at a medium level. We'll talk specifically about what that means, but it is really going from reactive to proactive. And then this doesn't show all the years, but ultimately ending at a high level of service by year 10. So there were costs developed for each of those, and I can go into the details on these. I'll probably hit some highlights of these, and then we can go into details if you want more information. But as an example, so asset management system inspection, right now, as I mentioned, the city is only able to inspect things when they're called out to a problem. The idea here at this medium level is hire staff, buy equipment so that they can inspect the system a fifth of the inspection every year, so the entire system gets inspected on a 5-year rotating cycle. And then they know where the problems are and where to focus money, say, for that lining program. It includes, the tools, supplies, manpower, that's rolled into the costs. O&M is very similar. This would be the street sweeping program. Again, city's limited now to sweeping, I think, a minimum of twice a year. This would ramp that up to a crew that would be dedicated to street sweeping as weather allows, and continuously keep that material out of the pipes, from plugging up the pipes, from going into the Laramie River. Engineering and planning, as I mentioned, tied to the capital improvements. The idea here was to start at a basic level and move into a medium level and really attack those high priority projects. The goal is an investment of $4 million a year to capitalize that master plan, with the idea that in 7-8 years, those high priority projects are completed and those most obvious flooding problems start to go away. This includes staff requirements of engineering to oversee those projects, as well as the capital cost to implement them. And then, of course, you have to have an administration and customer service to make sure the bills go out, to make sure customer service complaints are handled in a timely manner, and to make sure that the public is seeing the results of the program, so that they feel the money is being well spent. So this was a 10-year forecast for the cost of the stormwater management program. And probably the thing to note is, it is the high dollar value. The capital cost moves around. That's because there are specific projects planned in those out years. Early on, there needs to be a focus on design until they get those projects. But you've got to have money available, say, in the 4th year when you've got a $9 million project on the agenda to be able to construct that. So that jumps around, but the personnel and the direct operating costs are pretty steady to start doing that maintenance right away so they can hit the ground running. The role of impervious area. So this is the measurement tool. Laramie has great data. We don't always see data of this quality. It's really helpful in having accurate data, so that if you send someone a bill, they can see, oh yeah, that matches what I have. This is an example of the data. The city hired a vendor to do an aerial flight. From that aerial imagery, the vendor determined what was impervious area and what was not, and then they overlaid parcel data on top of that to calculate how much impervious area is on each parcel. It identified buildings, sidewalks, roads, what's private, what's public, what's paved, what's unpaved, decks, patios. Here's zooming in to the lot level. You can see it did, it picked up the buildings without getting confused by the shadows. It picked up sidewalks, patios. Even if there was tree cover, it picked that up really well. Example here just showing picked up landscaping islands and parking areas. And then ultimately overlaying the parcel data on top to determine how much impervious area is on each parcel. So impervious area is really the meter, the standard across the country for determining what the impact of development is on a stormwater system. So once we had that data, we came to you and showed you the distribution of this data just to see. So this is single-family residential parcels grouped by size. So you can see a lot of them fall into that 2,000 to 3,500 square feet area there in the middle where those bars are high. The median is 2,800 square feet. If we look at the next slide, you asked us to look at an option for tiering. What if instead of charging every property the same rate per 500 square foot unit, they were lumped into tiers? So we looked at putting into 4 tiers, and ultimately council decided there was some inequity in that. With just within a tier, there was a lot of variability, especially at the high level, of people with 15,000 square foot of impervious area paying the same as someone at 4,000. So ultimately, we went with that first option of everyone pays the same rate per billing unit. Here's an example of the billing calculation. On this parcel, the measured impervious area is 3,700 square feet. Divide that by the 500 square foot billing unit, that's 7.4. Billing units are rounded to the nearest whole number, so that one, in case it's rounded down, so it would be 7 billing units.
Just 1 minute there. Can you remind people how much a billing unit is?
Yes, sorry. A billing unit is 500 square feet.
Oh, sorry, the cost.
And
so
it's $1.67.
Perfect,
Yes.
thank you.
This is a distribution by land use. And it's pretty much a third of Laramie is of impervious area. A third is residential, a third is commercial, and a third falls under, say, exempt nonprofit type status, just to show the distribution. And we looked at how the different options of tiered versus non-tiered would affect that, and it didn't result in much of a shift. But the idea of the utility is everybody, regardless of land use, pays that same $1.67 per billing unit. And I think with that, I will turn it over to Elizabeth to describe the financial policy.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Elizabeth Treadway. I'm also with WSP, and I worked with Aaron and staff and you folks in establishing the actual financial policy and rate structures that we evaluated and brought to you. In phase 1, when we did the initial evaluation of both your current costs and the actual assessment of change that was defined as needed, the financial policy we worked with at that point was to look at, from a fee charge basis, what the rate structure could be with the tools that we had at that time. This was before the aerial photography and impervious layer was created. And so we used, at that point, what's called an equivalent residential unit assessment, where all residential parcels would pay on the same basis, and the non-single-family residential parcels would pay on a relationship to those costs. One of the things that you shared with us at that time was the inequity, and Aaron has raised that concern as well that you shared with us when we were looking at even once all of the impervious data was in place. So that was, early on, we took off the table and no longer considered that approach when we were doing the review of the fee structure itself. So when we started phase 2, one of the things we worked with was your finance staff, and were given basic parameters of financial policy that they wanted us to work with in looking at the actual development of the forecast and the rate model. And so these factors you see on the screen were things that we were given guidance on to put into the rate model. I think the important conclusion of that is that we were asked to take into consideration all available revenue that could be involved in and in establishing especially the first approach to the rates themselves. So the use of an upfront contribution from the general fund, the use of bonds, the use of grants, all of those things were taken into consideration, including the potential for the special option sales, no, that's not the right word, I'm not using it. Special purpose, thank you so much for the correction, that even that would be on the table and used when we were doing the 10-year forecast. So I just emphasize that this is not a revenue stream that was built solely on the fact that there would be fee charges, but that all sources of revenues would be brought into the evaluation of costs and actually ultimately then minimize the impact that would be charged on a per parcel basis. So we then took the information that Aaron has shared about the data that we had and built the cost model, again with advice and guidance from the finance staff, and looked at different ways in which the rates would be influenced by the capital investment, because that really is the significant driver of when projects would be put on the list of priorities and the schedule of actual capital investment. One of the things that we considered when we were looking at the residential tiered approach rate, as well as the fixed unit cost rate, was the growth of cost over time. The projects themselves are quite significant, and so though we brought in bonds, we brought in the potential role of grants, we considered how those funds could be generated. We had an option to consider, which is a steady growth rate over time to address things like inflation, as you have price creep on things like people's salaries and the cost of goods, or whether we should let the rate float. Let the rate go where the rate would go based on, again, primarily driven by those capital projects. So we brought those options to you, and what you see on the screen is simply a chart that shows if we let the rate grow as the projected forecast would grow with those capital projects in it. It had a very steep curve that was happening as you got to years 4, 5, 6. And so we also then evaluated another option, which would be to start the rate a little bit higher and allow the growth to have a much smoother management structure. In doing so, what you create is a capital reserve fund that allows you to build cash, match it with your bonds, your grants, and stabilize the fund over time. We calculated those rates for you to see what the impact would be. This is the second option of how the rate might grow over time. And the top one is based on using a tiered residential rate. The bottom set of rates are based on using a fixed 500 square foot billing unit. It was your guidance back to us just a year ago that your preference would be to smooth out that management of those capital projects and their influence on the rates rather than let the rate float. And so that is the ultimate financial model that we built, was based on the concept of putting a capital reserve investment strategy into the fund so that your ability to match grants and borrow would be smoothed out over time rather than have it be volatile, so that the predictability of what the rates would be from year to year would be erratic rather than a much more moderate management strategy. So ultimately, we looked at the comparison using the tiered residential rates, and then we looked at the fixed value rate. It was the fixed value rate using the more moderate control of costs over time that was the recommendation that you brought back to us when we walked through what was a very detailed meeting, as I remember, as we looked at all of these variables and the influence that it would have on these rates. So we looked at all the different ways in which revenue could be generated. Ultimately, we did the same evaluation on who pays that we did on the impervious area, and certainly using the fixed valued 500 square foot billing unit, it mirrors, obviously, the distribution of impervious area, as impervious area becomes the unit of measure for the bill itself as we calculated it. Once we had your feedback, we worked with staff to go forward to finalize the policy last fall. We prepared and supported, working with the city attorney, the ordinance language that was eventually taken to public hearing and adopted in December. We have been working with staff in developing customer service support. We helped complete the master account file that generated the charges per property, and as you're quite aware, the billing has just begun in the last few days. So the ordinance itself addresses the purpose of the funding, the actual rate structure. It authorizes a credit policy to be established. It establishes an appeal policy for review of a particular parcel and account. It identified 4 categories of exempt properties, and we ultimately then had it go to public notice in November, again with the adoption on December the 3rd. One of the things that we were asked to help you with this evening was to go over some of the frequently asked questions that we run into, that we hear consistently in the industry, but that you're also hearing in the community. So we put some slides together of those and would like to walk you through kind of what we know are the kinds of questions that get raised initially, and to give you some background information on those questions.
Council, do you have any questions yet, or should we keep rolling? Yes, please, Councilor Freed.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, too. I guess before we move forward, the couple questions I'll ask are just about impervious surfaces, so I don't know if we'll get into that later or if this is a good time. But just, what the criteria was, I'm just curious what the criteria was for considering something impervious, when that LiDAR's taking that, because I have heard some questions about that, so I don't know if someone could speak to that. And then to the billing units, if you had context for other communities in Wyoming with similar programs. I know everyone seems to be able to group these differently, but does our price compare to other communities doing something similar? Those are my two overarching questions from what we've kind of talked about so far.
Now, the technical question about the data is not my thing, so I'm going to ask if Aaron would come back up and
Please.
and respond to
Come on
that.
back, thank you.
Great, thanks, Counselor. So the question about impervious area. So the ordinance set a definition of impervious area, and it, was anything which restricts the infiltration of rainwater into the surface, and it includes hard surfaces such as roof, asphalt, concrete, as well as unpaved surfaces like gravel that are primarily used for transportation, so driving or parking. So that's what it said in the ordinance. The method used to determine that, so that the vendor that used the aerial imagery to determine that, for the most part, picked that up. There definitely were cases where maybe, they use probably AI to do that, where maybe it picked up rock landscaping as impervious, and it couldn't tell that was not parking versus what was. And those cases are being worked out. A lot of them were caught before the bills went out. Those properties were reviewed, but there are definitely some cases where maybe it wasn't picked up, and the process is in place to handle that. And then I forgot the second part of your question.
No, thank you so much. The second question was just about how, our rates at $1.67 per 500 square foot of billable units kind of compares to other communities, if you know that. I know you guys might not be the point for those other communities to do this type of work, but just curious if you had industry intel that could be shared.
Yeah, well, I'll take a first shot, then turn it over to Elizabeth. One, you're right, it is difficult to compare when people have grouped them and charged things differently, but so City of Cheyenne has implemented it. I think they will start sending bills out January 1st. Their billing unit is square foot, so instead of 500 square foot, it's 1 square foot. I don't envy the tracking of that, but when you so they're charging a fraction of a penny per square foot. When you take that out to a 500 square foot billing unit, it's very similar to Laramie. I could do that. I could do that math and get back to you. But I can't speak to the other communities. They're doing it a lot differently. I don't have those numbers in front of me. Elizabeth might be able to speak to other areas of the country.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Treadway, if you want to address that question now or wait until I don't know if that's in your frequently asked questions.
No, I'd like to deal with it right now.
Great.
I think it's really important to, when we start comparing community to community, one of the things that's most important to recognize is that what drives the rate is the service that they're trying to fund. It's not we pick a number and hope we can make enough money to do what we need to do. It's quite the opposite. You build a rate model on the basis of what are you trying to accomplish. That's why all of the program work is done first to determine what are your goals, what is it that you need to accomplish from a priority perspective. Lots of communities, of course, around the United States, it is hard to relate your program to them because over 10,000 communities around the country are regulated by an EPA grant for water quality that drives the cost of their program differently than yours. And so you have to look behind the scenes if you want to do comparative data. And so I just caution you on that. It really is important to understand what Cody's trying to accomplish or what Cheyenne's trying to accomplish or Green River. They're not on par with each other because their services are driven so much by what their needs are in order to manage their surface drainage. And that's true all across the United States. But I will tell you that where you are starting in your general rates for the revenue you're trying to generate is very consistent with communities of your size around the country. Now, it's easy for me to say that because I live in this world and work in this data all the time, but I'm not a statistician telling you we've done a comparative analysis and within certain ranges there's this consistency. I'm telling you anecdotally as someone who does the work and understands the program of services people are trying to deliver, where you are in your rates is very consistent with where we see communities of your size. Now, we can find exceptions all over the place. If you go to Florida, you're going to be paying rates 5 times this. So it is something you have to look behind the curtain if you want to do that kind of data analysis. So I just caution you
Thank
to
you.
making those conclusions, right?
Councilor Newman, I think I saw your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. I don't remember what properties were exempt from this. I don't remember.
Oh, I'm
talking
sorry.
about
They were
that.
up on the screen. I can
I must
run
have
back
missed them.
if you
I'm
want
sorry.
me to, but it is the roads themselves, okay? It's the ballast for railroads, not their, like a depot or an office or parking, or just the ballast for the railroads. For agricultural zone property in the city limits, and I'm about to lose the 4th one.
The airport.
The airport, thank you. It's only the area within the restricted security fence of the airport. All the rest of the airport, I appreciate that, fell out of my brain. It is only the secure area, the rest of the airport, roadways, parking, terminal, all of that is charged. Thank you for that question. I'm sorry, it was on the screen. I just didn't point it out for you.
Thank you. Unless there are other, Councilor Shumway, did you have a question as well?
No, I'm sorry. My question was answered. Is about the exemptions.
Okay, great. So on to the
Okay,
FAQs.
on to the fun questions. Okay, this is one that comes up in every utility I've ever worked on, and I've worked on hundreds of them. Why do I have to pay? My property doesn't put any flow into the drainage system. The industry for establishing stormwater fee for services began over 50 years ago. And it has evolved over time consistently that impervious area represents the surrogate for measuring the degree of development on a parcel.
Can you put that into common language?
Okay.
Thank you.
I will. So we use a factor that tells us how intensely developed a parcel is, and that's the physical structures, the driveways, the parking lots, the buildings, the sidewalks, all of those physical structures, because it represents the degree of development that's on that property. It does not attempt to measure whether any rain occurs on that property, or how much rain occurs on that property, or how much rain runs off that property. The concept of establishing fees for stormwater started with the concept of why do we have to have a public system? Why is there a public drainage system? If this building didn't exist, if all of your houses, if the university, if all of your business and industry were not here, would you need a public drainage system? Simple answer, of course not. So what triggered the creation of the drainage systems? And it's the development of property, the clustering of developments, the density of those clustering into urbanizing areas triggered the demand decades ago for a public drainage system. So the industry turned to a concept of how developed, how busy, what's all the activity on that property, because that's the correlating factor that led to why the public system was created in the first place. And so we continue to use that in the industry. It is the standard that's used all over the United States and Canada, and it is measured by this surrogate we think of as measuring the amount of impervious area on that property. Our attempt at that fee structure is to fairly allocate the cost of doing business for the government. It is not to measure how much runoff occurs on the property, or whether one side of town gets more rain than the other side of town. It is a function of how intensely developed the property is, as the way we created a surrogate for distributing those costs. It's not unusual that we use that approach in other elements of public works services that we charge a fee for. Folks often feel very comfortable that a water meter represents the service that they buy from the city. In fact, it is a surrogate to represent that. And I always pick on my own home. I live in Northeast Tennessee. We have significant relief in the variable height from one property to another. My house uses 6 miles of pipe and 2 elevated tanks to get me a gallon of water. My very good friend lives less than a quarter of a mile from the treatment works and uses a tiny fraction of the system to get the same gallon of water, and we both pay the same price. It's not that we're measuring the service I'm buying. We're measuring the way to take the cost of all of our water system and distribute it across the community. This is no different than that concept. I have the same issue with our solid waste charges. My neighbor, lovely family, 4 teenage children, 3 of them boys, put out a tremendous amount of solid waste every week. I'm lucky if I put something out once a month. I'm single, live by myself. We pay the same price. We're comfortable with the idea that there's a fairness to that methodology. And the industry for managing stormwater established that same philosophy some 52, 53 years ago when the first utility was established for surface water drainage. So it's a matter of finding a tool that represents the concept of why that service is being delivered to the community, for which everyone receives benefit. It is truly a quality of life. Can you tell I love what I do? Because I'm sorry I got on my soapbox. I went way beyond answering that question, and I apologize for that. But it is important in understanding when I work in this business, I want the communities I work with to understand the philosophy that created the driver for why these fees are allocated on the basis of impervious area. And they are consistently done for the thousands of utilities that are in place in this country today on that basis. So forgive me for getting on my soapbox. I'm passionate about what I do for a living, but I want you and the public to understand there is a great history to the way these rates were established and how that impervious area is used as the surrogate for stormwater. More fun questions. I haven't heard about this. This is, where did this come from? This just got adopted. I know that city council just need to balance the budget or something. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit sarcastic. I've been doing this for a long time. But I know the public who has not heard about this becomes frustrated because there's a perception that no one told anybody about it, that it wasn't transparently done. And so we've just listed a few things here to remind all of us that this is a 3-year effort at this point, maybe more than that. Just looking at this approach, as Aaron took you back to 2010, when the initial master plan work was put in place. This has been building over 15 years to come to the conclusion in Laramie, at your decision, that this funding is needed to rebuild and stabilize and sustain a future to manage the community from a stormwater runoff drainage infrastructure perspective. So you've certainly talked to the public, you've public hearings, newspaper articles. There has indeed been an attempt to be transparent with what you're doing. You have a website that has all the background documents for someone who's interested in reading all of the material that was put together. So we wanted to reinforce, because this question does come up a lot. I never heard of this. How did this happen? When did it get started? Who was talking about it? Another question, the idea of, is this new? Why are we doing this? No one else is doing this. We hear that kind of a question and comment. Again, there are thousands of these. We use the number 2,500 because it's hard to inventory them. They're growing all the time. And so the last national survey we know of had that at about 2,700 known stormwater utilities in place today. I know that there are at least a dozen in Canada as well, because I've worked on those utilities in Canada too. But the question was asked earlier by Councilman Cheyenne, Green River, Cody, Evanston are ones we know about, but we're aware of others in Wyoming that are underway. You're relatively new to the business. There are states that have been establishing the authority to do this decades ago. New Jersey was also one of the newest to join the fray. We now have utility structures in all 50 states. Who pays? Again, this question, and there's the exemption list there as well. It is indeed the property owner for developed property, with the exception of the agriculture property owners. They are the only owners that are not charged. All other owners are public agencies, nonprofits, business, industry, homes. But there are 3 classes of impervious area that are not included in the calculations. That's the public roadways, the rail ballast, and the airport area within the secure perimeter fencing. Will my bill change in the future?
Gonna
Oh, I'm sorry.
interrupt you for just a minute, please.
I just
Councilor
wanted to
Doherty.
let the public know that this slideshow is already on our website under agendas. So if you don't want to have to take pictures of the screens, it's all, if you go to City of Laramie agenda, it's right there, the PDF with all these slides. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry. So will my bill change in the future? The answer is it could. You can increase the amount of impervious area in your property. So say you're adding a two-car garage, or, you're building something to your office complex or something like that. It also could go down if you remove impervious area. So if you've, years ago knocked down that old shed, but it still had a concrete slab there and it got picked up, you can get rid of that concrete slab, restore the land, and yes, your calculation would go down. So there are ways that it could be affected that way. You also have your credit policy that you've adopted. The credit policy, if you qualify under the criteria that was established, affords you an opportunity to reduce your bill up to 50%. And then, obviously, you folks can, in your budget hearings, as you adopt a budget, change the actual rate calculation itself. So it's now at $1.67 for that one billing unit. You would certainly expect to see, as costs change over time, that number would change as well. So yes, I think you can expect that there would be potentially an adjustment in your current bill in the future. How do I obtain a credit? Okay, so credits are available under various categories of criteria that are established, managing peak flow, volume, things that are recognized that could assist the community in maintaining cost control. So you've invested as a private owner of property in a particular type of facility. That cost that you've invested can help to reduce or sustain a lower cost for the public agency in managing the system. So you can apply for, there's a process, it's on the website, there's a manual, it explains how to work through that. There's a lot of documentation that has to be provided, but once approved, it then reduces your bill at whatever percentage that is calculated. There is a formula that gets worked through, and they are renewed each year as long as you sustain and maintain your commitment. So what's the commitment to the property owner? Maintain whatever the criteria was that allowed you to receive the credit. Fail to do that, you've broken your agreement with the city, you've lost your credit. It's important that that investment be sustained in order, again, to assist in the cost of running the public system as well. So that's the recognition that's in the credit program. Will these revenues be used for non-surface water drainage programs? You are not to do that. I'm sure you're quite well aware. It is to be dedicated to tracked, maintained, reported on only for the surface drainage system. I think my bill's wrong. I want to appeal it. Is there a process? Yes, there is a process. Again, the process is available on the website. It allows for a review. The calculation could be reviewed, the amount of impervious area. If you had received a credit, but it wasn't being placed on your monthly bill, there are various criteria for which you could find an adjustment being made, and you can appeal that. It's a form that you fill out, provide sufficient information to allow staff to review it. So there's a built-in, through the ordinance, appeal process that allows that to happen. And those were the key questions. We do have a frequently asked questions that have 50 of them. But I thought those were a good highlight of the kinds of questions that will be raised and have been raised in the community. And for that, I believe we finished our portion of the presentation.
Thank you so much for the information. Counselors, any questions for either Yes, Counselor Lockhart.
Thank you, Assistant Mayor. And this is more for the city. And thank you so much for the presentation.
Sure.
I'm a new council person, so I wasn't involved in any of this. So this explains way more than all the emails I've been getting. So I've saved and downloaded this to be able to
Good.
share with
Good.
concerned citizens.
Thank you. I'll sit down, is that?
You can, yeah, because this one's for the
Okay.
city, that's fine. Reading through these emails on the question of impervious area and trying to appeal it, did I read it right that they're still working on that appeal for citizens, but not commercial properties, or am I incorrect in that?
Director Japp.
Honorable Mayor, through you. So we do have a GIS map that has been set up on our website that you can click on your property as you go through there, find out all the information on your property through that map. At the same time, you can apply for an appeal or a credit through that same map and process. So that is all set up on our website.
It is set up. Okay, I thought I read that there was a challenge right now with the appeal process, so that was my concern.
Eric, could you speak to differentiate the appeals and credits and who the eligible parties are? I think that's not well understood.
There you go, yeah.
Okay. Honorable Mayor, through you. So appeal, anybody can appeal. That basically, I think there was a slide that was up earlier. If there's incorrectly applied or a property that's exempt, anything along those lines. We did take our, best effort at setting up all the impervious area, but as Aaron noted, there could be some mistakes on there. So we are seeing those, and homeowner can come in and let us know about that, and we'll look into and investigate and get that corrected. Credit is going to be more for, it's non-residential, or is where the credit's going to apply. So except for an ADA ramp, if it's on the home, as was set up by council. But if you're like a commercial type development or something like that, you can apply for the credit program in the guideline that's outlined with that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And for those in the audience, City Clerk pulled up this map, which will show you, you can pull up you can put in your address, or you can kind of search through the map, click on your property, and it will show you, then you'll see the billing unit. So for the City of Laramie, it's 47 billing units. So you take that billing unit times that $1.67 to determine what your fee will be, and that will be a monthly fee. So I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with that, but just wanted to make sure y'all are aware that that's there and available to you as you're doing it. Any other questions here from council first, and then we'll get to the audience for comments. Thank you. Yes, Councilor Newman.
I was trying to decide what in the city limits is classified ag land. I don't, do we have ag land actually in city limits?
Director Webb. I keep trying to call you Director Brooks. I don't know why. Director Webb.
All right. I've been called worse. Mayor. There's a few pieces of ag land on the far west side of Laramie. The big piece is actually owned by the university, and then, believe it or not, the Army, the National Guard Center is zoned agricultural. I don't know why, but it is. And the reason that we exempted agriculture is because the state statute talked to that and said that they have to be exempted. So that's why they're in there. So I think it's really just those two pieces of property on the far west side.
Hello.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Wait until
Other councilors, questions? Councilor Bowling.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Aaron and Elizabeth, for the presentation. Really informative. Thank you, Director Webb and Mr. Chapp. I'm maybe going to put our city manager or our city attorney on the spot here, and I apologize for that. I would just like for the public record, and especially because I believe there's probably people watching online or will watch the YouTube stream of this. There seems to be a lot of public confusion about the state statute in which this was developed, and I'm wondering if either Janine or Bob online, if you could just briefly explain the difference between Title 16 and Title 15, which is under which this was developed. Because I just think that that's an important thing for the record and for people online and in the audience to be able to understand.
Sure. I'm happy to handle that unless you want to, Janine.
No, I think you are the person with the law degree.
Yeah, those are two entirely different ways of funding stormwater drainage operations. Title 16 is one way. Title 15 was amended, and I don't remember exactly whether it was 2020 or 2021, to allow cities to fund these operations as we have done it. You will see, for instance, Cheyenne relies on Title 15. It's 15.7.101A3 to be technical. So these are two different ways of funding these projects, and we're funding ours under Title 15.
Thank you. Follow up to that?
Thank you, City Attorney. I just want to also thank Mr. Tom Mattamore, who sat on the focus group, who also has provided some of that information in a handout, and I think it might be circulating around. So thank you, Mr. Mattamore, for that clarification as well.
Other questions? Yes, Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've seen a lot of comments on social media, and there seems to be a lot of confusion about whether or not the university pays into this fee. And so just for the record, could we get clarification on that?
Mayor and Council, they do. Go ahead, Brooks.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't have social media, which has been great, but the university is not exempt from the program. All government agencies, including the City of Laramie, will receive a bill for the surface water drainage fund.
Thank you.
$31,000.
Great. Councilor Freed.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. And thanks, Director Webb, for that information. I've also, heard comments from members of the public about their rates being maybe higher than what's projected on these averages. I know mine is around $12 for my house per month. As I'm trying to phrase this, is there a way, do we know, obviously the university has a ton of impervious surface, so they're going to have a high number, but do we have a way to say, no one should be paying over $500 a month, for an average size property or something along those lines? Is there a way that we could say that now, or I've just heard some numbers that I don't see their bills, but I was just curious if there's a way to say, if you have a lot in a single family home and a garage, if someone's getting a $500 bill, is that a miscalculation, or is that possible, I guess? I don't know who that question is directed to. Apologize.
And maybe can I ask for a little clarification? So the question is, if you get a bill that seems, and you live in town in a single family residential home, and you get something that says you owe $500 a month, that might be something you might want to follow up on, because there would be some issues.
Something you might want to appeal.
Right,
yes.
because that is highly, there could be some issues there, right? So that would be the appeal purpose.
Right. And so could there be a resident paying that kind of charge? Yes. If you remember, and I don't want to flip back through slides, but we did the distribution curve. And so quite surprised by the number of parcels in the single-family category that trailed out to that very large number. And so, yes, there are parcels in this community that, on the residential side, that could be that significant. But it certainly was balanced against, if you remember, it was a fairly tight bell curve. It's clustering right around what was said as the average.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Additional questions? And, Councilor Newman.
If nobody else has some. One of the common questions I got in my email is, and I think this is going to be for staff, is there a sunset on this? Like, is this ever going to go away? And that was like one of the common questions in my email, and then I have some follow-ups.
Council, I'm happy to take that. Councilor Newman, through you, Vice Mayor Richardson. Typically, the establishment of a utility fund or for a fee of this sort is to operate this system in perpetuity, well beyond, frankly, the lifespans of the folks sitting in this room, provided nothing catastrophic happens in the world. And so when you look at municipal utilities, whether they're drinking water, whether they're sanitary sewer and sewage treatment, whether they're solid waste related, or whether they're related to stormwater and surface water drainage. Those are perpetual funds of the city in so long as this jurisdiction exists. Now, what I will say is the revenue demand for operating, maintaining, and building that system can change over time. You know from the data you've seen tonight, and you've been reviewing the last 3-4 years, we have $130 million of capital investment that we estimate we need to make in 2022 dollars in order to get this system functioning the way it needs to for the weather and the precipitation patterns that we have here in Laramie, and to adequately protect properties in this community. So let's say we, over the next 10 years, are able to tackle that and lower the capital expenditure we need to make on an annual or a 10-year basis. It could be that rate will adjust down. I can't tell you that it won't. We're also, I think you heard from our consultant, from Elizabeth, we're this stormwater utility, like all of our enterprise utilities, they're businesses. They run just like a business. The only difference is the fees that you charge do not have to make a profit. You just have to break even. So we will adjust fees over time, but that business is going to be susceptible to the same pricing pressures that every business is, and I know many of you are business owners, and Elizabeth mentioned that as well. Inflation has been particularly challenging for our enterprise business activities, and now stormwater will be our fourth. So I hope that that sort of answers your question. I can't say that it will ever go away, because the system has to be renewed and maintained in perpetuity, and it does also age, right? So lines get old, lines fail, they have to be replaced, and you're sort of always chasing your tail to keep that system performing well and not being past its useful life.
Great. Another question, Councilor Newman, unless others have one. Councilor Doherty.
On the histogram, in this presentation, the highest bucket in the histogram is 15,000 square feet. So that's nowhere near $500 a month. 15,000 square feet.
15,000 units.
It says impervious area, square feet. That's what I'm looking at. I've heard this number a lot, that people are going to have to go out of business because they are going to have to pay $500 per month. And the number I come up with is that's 150,000 square feet of impervious area. That's like 5 Walmarts. So I'm just wondering how many. Wait a minute. I was just wondering, for residential, do we have residential property impervious area of 150,000 square feet? Because I don't see anything like that. But maybe we address that later, because it sounds like the public is getting restless. So.
We can look at those, evaluating that chart that y'all had, and making sure we're looking at it as to whether it's the units or if it's the square feet. And I think that can get sometimes a little bit confusing. And the chart, I believe, is square feet, but yes, Aaron.
Yeah, Mayor, I can address that. Yeah, that is in square feet. I will note that last bucket is the properties that were above 15,000. I don't have the data in front of me to see what the highest one was, but there were, I think, 30-some properties above 15,000, but it doesn't mean they could have been well above above that.
Great. Thank you. All right, getting back to it. Councilor Newman.
I want to remind council, once we go to the public, we don't get to talk again, so unless we change that. So if you have comments, you need to say them before. So I will start with.
I still have a question, Councilor Newman.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. So one question that I have for the city is, can you share how these funds can be collected to, I know one of our our folks in the audience shared that those could be collected then to, in the future, provide the basis for a bond that could then kind of help improve some of this as well. Is that correct? And could you explain a little bit about what that might look like and how something like this could be important to a bond issue?
So if I'm understanding, Vice Mayor, we're asking, can these funds be utilized to support payback of a bond?
Correct.
The answer is absolutely yes.
So if we're looking at major infrastructure issues like on in West Laramie, that, I mean, we know that's millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
That would be a tool to help kind of make those.
In the 10-year model of the forecast for the rates, we have several bond issues that were scheduled, again, with guidance from your finance folks as to when to schedule those. We also had target dates for specific grants. Often grants come with some percentage, some as high as a 50% match, so depending on the criteria. So these funds are eligible for use to generate additional types of revenue, like bonds, like grant matches, and can be used to pay back the debt service.
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions from council? Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question about stormwater and surface water that comes in, that's introduced to the county, to the city from the county, and it can come in from any direction. As that comes in, does the county have any obligation to participate in the cost of the removal of the surface water that's introduced from the county into the city that we're responsible to carry through our stormwater system?
Thank you for the question. Who would like to answer that one?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to answer that question. That's why I'm looking around. I think through you, Mayor, Councilor Shumway, you're talking about development on the periphery at the rural-urban boundary, if you will. So that's why I was looking at the city engineer to maybe address how we handle stormwater on the boundary. But I think your question of whether we can somehow assess the county for lands outside of the city within the stormwater utility is more of a legal one. I suspect the answer is no, but I will defer to, again, Attorney Southard.
Attorney Southard, would you have any thoughts on that, or do you want to think that one over a bit?
Well, I always want to think things over, but let me see what I can do. Be very specific about exactly what you're asking.
Councilor Shumway, do you want to?
What I can say is that much of the flooding that happens in the city of Laramie is introduced from floodwater that comes from the county, and it comes down, and by the time it hits the city, it's already a raging, amount of water, and then we're responsible to remove all of it out of the city and protect properties within the city, even though perhaps 90% of the cause is coming from the county properties where the water is originating and being introduced into the city limits.
Okay, I'm gonna respond by saying good question, and you're correct that I'm going to have to think more about that.
Thank you. Other questions from the council before we move on to comment from the council? Comment. Yes, sir. Mr. Lockhart, Councilor Lockhart.
Mayor, can you hear? Just doing a little math on here. Like Walmart, 690,554 square feet equals 1,381 units. You take that times $1.67, that's 2,306. So Walmart with 36 acres of property is $2,300 a month, just to put it all into perspective.
Folks, You'll have some opportunity to comment. If you can just hold tight while we work through the council, I'd sure appreciate it. Any other comments by council? Councilor Newman.
As one of the counselors who voted against this, I still do not support it. With that being said, I think there are some changes that need to be made. I think as a council, we should probably look at credits for residential properties, especially the residential properties that do a really good job about keeping some of the water on their property. The mayor, vice mayor, myself, I think maybe some other people have been in on the email too, but there are residents who do a really good job about it, and we're not doing anything for them. However, if a company wants to come in and do something, we can do something for them. So I think we need to, I would like to see it go away. I don't think that's going to happen, so I think we need to make changes for this. That is one of the changes that if it doesn't go away, probably should be addressed, and addressed fairly fast, because we're already billing these customers. And I think I'll just shut up there.
Other comments from council members? Yes, Councilor Freed.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to say thanks to, everyone who's put the time and effort and the consulting firm to make this happen, and for the members of the public. I think like Councilor Newman just said, I think we're going to try to take everything you say into consideration. But the fact of the matter is this is implemented and we want to do it the best way we can. So really value your opinion, and please make your comments heard, because we'd love to hear them. Thanks.
City Manager.
Mayor, if I could add something, and I apologize because I honestly thought that this would be in the presentation and it wasn't, but I do think it's an important point, and I appreciate Councilor Newman for reminding me of it. With respect to the benefit of the program to individuals, and I will follow Elizabeth's example and use my own home. Even if I maintain all precipitation on my property and it never leaves my property line, I am still receiving a benefit from this program. And I'll tell you why. Because where I live, in the tree area, 15th-ish and Sheridan-ish, the storm drain there, and I do live here, not in Fort Collins. I can't say that early, often, or enough. In any case, the storm drain at 15th and Sheridan has a tendency to overflow, because when we get storms that hang up on the east side of town or in the lower part of the Sherman Hills, there is, and this gets to Councilor Shumway's point, there is runoff that comes off the Sherman Hills through the county properties and isn't adequately slowed down. And so even where I live in the tree area, I am protected by a series of retention basins upstream of me, all the way to the east of the community in the Turner Tract, that grab that water, contain it, and don't let it basically roll to the river where nature wants it to go, and take my house out with along the flow of that water. In addition, the storm sewer outlet in my street is going to capture the runoff from my neighbors and take it down to the river so it doesn't run across my property and flood my property. So I really, really would love to see us as a community come to the understanding that all people benefit from this system, because it really is a system of protecting property and life. And so if that wall of water coming off the Sherman Hills before we built Laramie, that was Mother Nature's way of getting that water to the river, if our stormwater system wasn't here, we'd all be, flooded out every time we have a good storm. So even if I contained all my water, I'm still getting a benefit, and I'm very happy to receive that benefit given where I live.
Other comments from council? Yes, Councilor Doherty.
I thought we might consider some credits for the rural residential zoning, especially over where we don't have them included in the stormwater runoff master plan yet, like on the Roach addition. So I just thought that's something that we could consider, because they are providing permeable land that helps to slow things down. So just going to throw that out there.
Other comments? I would just echo some of what Councilor Newman said, in that I feel pretty strongly that if residents are going to put a concerted effort to make improvements to their land that then helps the rest of the city not flood, I think that should be rewarded. There are certain things that, I mean, we put a French drain in, that French drain is great, but it still goes into the gutter and into the storm system, right? So maybe that's not it. But I would really like to look at what are things that other cities have done that prove to really help the whole system. If we are saying this is important enough and this flooding is such a big issue in Laramie that we are going to impose a fee on me, on you, then if you are going to go to that effort of really trying to make sure that water isn't going in, or at least is going into the ground, then I feel like that is our responsibility to reward that and thank residents for the work that they're doing. And so I just want to put that out there as well. And if others on the council are feel similarly, I would love to see us move forward again also with something quickly to create those positives. I will also just note, I was talking to my kid today, he is 10, and I was telling him that we had this big meeting tonight, and, we were talking about this storm thing, and that, there are some big emotions, people aren't happy about it, other people don't quite understand it, all of these things. And I guess what I come back to, he was like, so trying to explain it, right? And I said, I guess how I need to think about this is that if you choose to live here in 40 years, I'm not fixing the problem now so that you and your friends and your neighbors 40 years down the road are having to pay for it. And so that's a hard balance because none of us want to pay into this, but I anyway see the impacts to our streets and to our drains and to not getting through on 4th Street when I go to work sometimes, and so that's hard, but I think it's part of making sure not just today we're thinking about this issue, but that we are responsible for making good decisions for future generations as well. So I just want to put that out there. So with that, unless there are other comments from council, would love to open it up to the public. The first person signed up, are we going with the sign-up sheet, Nancy? And if you aren't signed up, it's fine. Once we get through these first folks, you can come up and share your thoughts as well. And we are going to limit this to 3 minutes. And so want to start, is Christopher, you're still in the audience, and it looks like you have, oh, that's for our next topic, sorry, apologize. So first person up is Tom Matamore, if you want to come on up and share your thoughts.
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was the Planning Commission representative on the Stormwater Focus Group. At the very first meeting, I made it very plain that this is going to be a complex, convoluted, complicated process. And if you don't get the people on board, they will show up with pitchforks and torches and whine and cry. They are here. They didn't bring their torches, but they are here. At the second meeting of the focus group, Stormwater Focus Group, when we really began to talk about funding, we were handed that document I presented that showed city budget documents were handed to us as the legal authority for a stormwater system. The legal authority cited was Title 16, 10, 104, and 105, and Title 15, you get all the way down in the weeds, basically 6 words in Title 15. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to argue with the city attorney. I do believe, however, that other attorneys will bring it up because 16, 10, 104, and 105 require an election before you impose a stormwater fee. So the attorney has decided that we're going to go with 15.7, Title 15.7, and that's what you guys went with. That's fine. I think you're going to have consequences with it. My main point, however, is you need to take some notes from the planning department. when the planning department does something, for example, the urban renewal, right? Now we're going through it with the comprehensive plan. We go to the planning department sets up a tent at Farmers Market with lots of posters and pictures and handouts. They go to the car show and set up at the car show and do it. This stormwater system, and I've sat through 12 hours of those meetings, and I think you can get the public's opinion here just listening to it for 45 minutes. Half of them went to sleep. It's a complex, convoluted process that needs a lot of explanation. Having 3 public meetings in front of City Council was insufficient. Nobody reads the Boomerang anymore. If they publish 3 days a week, I'd be surprised. All right, most people go through their lives and hope they never hear from their city government, much less go to the city website. All right, I think no public outreach was seriously done on this to explain it. I believe in a stormwater fee. I think we picked the most complicated way to do it because it's going to require what you're about to do, make some changes to it so that you can deal with the credits. 95% of the water that lands on my property stays on my property. I've got a little driveway. I mean, all my gutters and downspouts go into my lawn. And
Mr. Matamore, sorry to interrupt you. If you could wrap it up, that would be great. Your
okay,
3 minutes
I'll
is done.
wrap it up.
Thank you.
Do some more public outreach before you do anything this hard again. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Matamore. Next up is, I believe, Dana Williams. All right. Welcome, Mr. Williams.
Hi, how's everybody?
Green button.
Hi, thank you. I guess everybody knows a little bit more about this than I do. I guess I'm just kind of getting new into this, but being a resident here in Laramie, I guess I took great objections to how this was put on my bill for the impervious area on my residence that, like said before, you know, that we're talking about stormwater here, and all the impervious area on my property does not go into the stormwater. And so I think it is unfair that one individual pays more than another. I think some of the comments here were a lot better. We all pay whatever it is, $9 for a trash can. And we all benefit from the stormwater that's gonna, the improvements and repairs that need to be made. It should all be equal among the city residents. If this is to be imposed, not one individual pay more than another or less. And so that was my big concern, that, you know, we're all gonna benefit from it, so let's make it equal for everyone. And to charge one more than another, I think, is totally unfair, and to fill out a bunch of paperwork and get credits and do our own calculations, it's just mass confusion. You make us mad. So I just think it needs to be a lot more simpler. I'm not against the stormwater improvements or anything, but the way it's done is not a good system, and I'll end it there.
Thank you. Appreciate your feedback, Mr. Williams. Next up is Pat, is it Rinka?
That's correct.
Is that right? Okay. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you. You have to push the button.
If it's green, you're good.
My name is Pat Rinker. I've lived in this community for over 70 years. I'm kind of talking more about the north end of town because that's where I was growing up. Couple things, they talked about rock and the purity of it. My whole yard down there, I owned Rinker's Auto Salvage for 60 years, was gravel and dirt and stuff like that. There was nothing on there where that water was running off. It all came from the railroad. So that piece of property I've sold. The young man who bought it got his bill the other day, and you want to charge him $800 a month for something that we don't even have a storm drain in that end of town. Anyway, you add that up, it's $9,600 he's going to have to come up with out of his pocket. I'd like to represent the people who have businesses around town that are going to get stuck with these bills. You take their truck stops and everything else. Yes, they need to be larger, but the bottom line is you drive people out of town. That's ridiculous when you start telling somebody it's going to cost them $10,000 to $20,000 a year, up and above the water that they are using. So I think that needs to be addressed somewhere down the line as far as the figures. Now, this city, if you start a business, they will not give you a occupancy permit unless your parking lot is paved. So that tells me that you want them to pave their parking lot so you can charge them more money on your pervious stuff. That does not make sense. You're double billing somebody. So that's something that you got to consider also. We all know that we need to grow this community, and we do need some help as far as the infrastructure. I think it has to be divvied up a whole lot easier than is going on at this time. If 7,000 people in this town refuse to pay this fee, what would the council do with those 7,000 people? Are you going to put liens against their businesses and their houses and stuff, or are you going to fine them, or are you going to throw them in jail? I mean, there's a lot of people who are upset about this, and I think that'll come down the pike more often. If people paid the fees this week or this month on their water bill, hypothetically, and the lawsuit comes about, which I understand there may be one, and you lose, will the people who have paid their money this month get it back? Will that be returned to them? These are just questions that I have in my mind. Thank you for your time.
All right, next up is, it looks like, folks, if you could, I know you have enthusiasm for it, but so I can call the next name and people can hear me, if you can hold tight on your clapping, I'd sure appreciate it. Is it L. White or J. White? L. White. Come on up.
My questions have been answered.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, R.V. Hill, and I know you came up earlier, and I am trying to remember your first name. Ross, thank you. Ross, come on up.
I'm good.
You're good too, okay. All right, Ben. Hunky. Hunky.
There you go.
Oh, it's H-U, not H-E. Come on up, welcome, you have 3 minutes.
I'm Ben Hunky, and I'm a community member. And so I've done a lot of work for the city of Laramie and for the community, and so like Ross, his deal, you know, I put in a bunch of stormwater to try and help West Laramie, and the streets out there are awful, and yeah, they need some work done, and they're holding mud and water. But if you go to all the storm drainages that I installed, I wasn't responsible to get the water to the storm drains. And that's, the city was responsible to bring a motor grader in and cut swells, you know, not ditches, but swells to drain the water to that, and that could help his situation. My main concern is that you know, my house, I'm on Riverside. If you shoot the elevation of Riverside and you shoot my house, actually, I sit 10 feet below Riverside. So you will not cut Riverside 10 feet down to catch my water. I'm 10 foot below it. There's no possible way it'll ever happen. And so I've got a nice gravel road. I've tried to do well to maintain my property and make it look nice. And so now I'm like, well, maybe I'll just let the weeds grow in all the roads and let the grass come up, and then not maintain it, not have a nice place, and then I can get my impervious ground lowered, you know, but that's not what I want. I want it to look nice in our community, and I want people to say, hey, man, you've done a really nice job with your property, and you know, my neighbors like it, but I could go the other route and let everything overgrow and change the value of the impervious property. And my other concern is, you know, like Lydia at True Value and those kind of businesses, she's struggling. Home base has come in and she's now losing business, and now she gets another tax imposed on her and she can't afford it, and now we lose True Value. And then now we have a vacant building on 3rd Street. It just upset me to see that hometown business be run out of town because of a tax that we've imposed that she can't afford. And I know, you know, with planning, there's a code that we have to abide by, and I think we need to change our code because it's making it too hard to develop, and it's making it too hard for the community to do anything. And a lot of companies will come to me and say, hey, I want to redo my parking lot. And I say, well, don't redo it all, because if you redo it all, they're going to make you do 10 more things. But if you do a portion of your parking lot, if you can do a third at a time, so this year do a third, next year do a third, next year do a third, they won't make you do all the extra steps because you're only going to do a piece. And that's how you can get around some of the extra hoops that our code has involved. And I think our code needs to change to allow people to come here to help development and help growth. But if you're imposing this stormwater fees, no one's going to want to bring their business here. They're going to go to the county to...
Mr. Harkey, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Your 3 minutes is over. If you could share, you talked a bit about some code and some ideas you have on that. If you would be willing to email me some of those ideas, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that code change.
Yeah, and could I say one more thing?
Yes, quickly.
The fairgrounds, that's a huge cost that the fairgrounds are going to have to pay, and I'm worried we're going to lose 4-H, and we're going to lose all that kids' playground stuff and all that activity, you know, with the fairgrounds. They were like $6,000 a month, and or even if it was 4, you know, I don't want to see our community activities go away because of this fee.
Thank you. And can I just get clarification? Is the fairgrounds in the city or the county? City. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we've got Zach Koch or Coach? Coach. Just kidding, Cook. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Welcome.
My name is Zach Cook. It's pronounced Cook, not Koch or Crotch or whatever. It's Cook. I'm here on behalf of myself, my family. I've been in Laramie for 48 years. I'm a retired building contractor. I know all the building codes. And I had to have that knowledge to keep my business floating and not sinking. I guess one of my issues right now is the water that falls from the sky. Why are we being charged for it? It's free, but why are you people charging us for something that falls free completely? I mean, onto my property, when I developed it so that water would stay on my property and not onto the streets of the city, period. And it's just the reverse now. The city water that falls on your street comes onto my property. And I get warnings that you better clean that up. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That's your water, not my water. In the winter, when I move the snow off of my property, it doesn't go off of my property. It goes over onto the other side of my property, and it stacks anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5 feet deep. And when it drains on my property, not onto the city. So why is the city wanting to charge me for something that falls from the sky free? I want to know that completely. That's something that just has blown me completely away. I'll just mention one issue. When I built that home, the gas meter, I was told, and I'm sure the council member remembers seeing it, is to be put right in front of my garage, a double-car garage, not 5 feet from the property line or 20 feet inside the property. It was put dead center right in front of the double-car garage. Where is that ever done in the world, my property? Was it done in New York City? Was it done in Kansas? No, it was done right in my property. And they told me if I bump into it, it's my responsibility. What were you talking about? And Jeff, good old Jeff, I know Jeff for many, many years. Okay. Okay. With Jeff, he's the one that came to my house just to visit when he was working with the city. And he asked why that was there, and I told him why, and what it was going to cost me to get it removed. And he says, no, I'm going to get it removed, and it's not going to cost you a dime. And he did, because I've known him for many, many years. And now that I'm friends with Ben, they're doing the work out there in Colorado. He has seen the issues out there that are going on. I mean, when the city, and I'll go as fast as I can, when West Laramie was annexed into the city, a letter was sent out to the whole neighborhood. If you annex us into the city, you're going to have this, 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 and this, everything that this east side has. 60 years later, it does not happen. We're still fighting it.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate you coming in. Appreciate it. Next up is Johnny, these are Vespucci? Vasquez.
My issues have already been shared.
Okay. Thanks, Johnny. And Casey Leach, I can read this one. Excellent. Sorry for the rest of y'all that I butchered the names. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm here for Knife River. We have a construction yard on the south side of town here, and so our monthly bill is going to be $2,600, and it's one of those things that we're going to have to make it up somewhere, and we provide asphalt for the city to do the streets and everything like that. Well, $2,600, and we only get 3 months of paving out of the year. So we're going to have to make it up somewhere, and it's going to come back on the city, and other businesses in town, and it's going to really affect most of them. So, and the application for the credits and stuff, I talked to somebody about a month ago, and they said, oh, we're going to have it, but it's not ready to do yet. And then I guess a couple days ago or something, they said that you can apply for these credits. Well, we got our bill the same day. So why don't you have the credits or application that you can do before you start sending the bills out for all this stuff? So that's all I have.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. It looks like he is not here. Mr. Hershey.
Good evening. So anybody notice that we live in a semi-arid desert? Yeah. Where we receive under 14 inches of rainfall a year? I try very hard to keep that water on my property because water is expensive. The previous city council spoke frequently about wanting to, about affordable housing. But last year, what did they do? They raised the water, the sewer, by 10%, and then they added a whole nother fee onto us. That increases cost. Mine's going to be $100 a year is more it's going to cost me. I'm not saying $8 a month, it's $100 a year. Let's think about that. $100 a year is substantial. We say $8 a month, oh, big deal, right? It's like you go to McDonald's and get a meal. But $100 a year, now we're starting to think, well, that's my whole 1 month city utility bill. So you just 12% higher is what we've come up and raised it that much. You're taking a whole nother city utility bill out of us. And another thing, I'd speak to one of the comments Liz was made about history. Well, there's many things in history that have been proven to not be the correct course. We could talk about segregation in schools. For a long time, that was the way we did it. Was that right? No, obviously not. But just because something has a historical, context doesn't mean it's right. So don't let that sway you. We've got a lot of people here who care, we're impassioned. And I was one of the only people who was here last year for those meetings. I saw Aaron speaking about our excellent data. And yet, now, here we are, we've got decks being shown up as roofs. We've got all these inconsistencies. That data is not excellent, I'm sorry. But if it was, we wouldn't have those issues. That's just the facts. So, what kind of a hypocrisy are we doing here? Where, we are charging also people for things that don't occur. That last Wednesday, we had a pretty significant rainstorm, probably the biggest one of the summer. I had 0.4 of an inch at my house. I looked out at my gravel driveways. 0 water was drained into the streets from there. I know, because I dug them out myself. I made sure it was 6 inches deep, before I even put in the gravel. I put in 6 inches of gravel because I wanted to, and I didn't put any packing compounds in there because I wanted it to drain. I want to keep the water on my property because it's too expensive to buy it from you guys. So we're being charged for stuff that doesn't exist, doesn't occur. We're, we live in a desert. There's all these issues here. We were not, as a community, informed by this, despite whatever anybody wants to say. It was only if you were actually coming and looking at the agenda on the city council's website, seeing what was going on. That's the only way we knew stuff. We don't have the credits in place for the residential people. I have French drains installed that drain into my lawn, not to the gutter. I have rain barrels that I put in to water my plants that I want, because I want to keep my water, like I said. I don't think I should have to pay for something that I am actively trying to help you guys on. Thank you for your time. Please reconsider this disastrous concept.
Thank you, Mr. Hershey. Next up, folks, again, if you could hold tight on your clapping till, I'll let you have a big round of applause at the end, I promise. But if you can hold tight just a minute. Ryan just went, I think it's Daryl. Daryl, thank you. Yes, Daryl, welcome.
So I sent you guys an email earlier today, so I'm just going to read that. This fee is based on the amount of impermeable area on your lot, which would make sense if your impermeable area impacted the storm drainage system. Then you say it doesn't matter if it impacts the drainage system. You still have to pay the fee. I feel like it's a bit conflicted with this calculation. Should there be a fee? Sure. Should it be a per residence fee? Yes. Why are we getting punished with an additional, I'm getting punished with $111 extra a month? When my property puts absolutely no water into the system. I'm Ben's wife, so our property is just below the road. We already pay property taxes for these structures and value of the land. Why are we now getting charged more? Not only are we getting dinged for our long driveway and turnaround, but we are also getting dinged for our undeveloped lot next door that happens to have a little bit of gravel on it. The website reads, and I quote, "A monthly fee of $1.67 will be assessed to each developed property within the city per building unit of 500 square feet impervious area. The lot next to me is not developed, and we cannot legally develop due to city code." So not only are we getting charged an additional $11 for that parcel, but they are also now throwing on the extra $5 for mosquito, which we've never had to pay, but it has to be on the bill. So now, this is costing my family $1,512 a month, or a year. That's an obnoxious number. How many months of groceries would that buy for my family? And that's not even with the increase that's coming next year, and probably every year after that. I was just finding some relief from our property taxes, which are roughly $5,300, and this new fee just increased it back up. Let's admit it, this is a tax. It's just a tax without representation. The city council knew that if they called it a tax, it would have to be voted on and it wouldn't pass. So they would have to weasel it in to get $130 million out of the residents. The city of Laramie keeps complaining about how such a big percentage of people leave town, but they don't make it easy to live here. There's a fee for everything. On top of your taxes, you're required to give your firstborn to do any type of developing and or revamping your own property, which in turn increases the already high property taxes. I love Laramie. I was born and raised here. 4 generations are still here. When it becomes too expensive to live here, it runs people out of town. It runs good businesses out of town. With the cost of goods at an all-time high, the city council who voted for this should be ashamed of itself in creating this additional cost for their people, especially in this manner. Also, please have the phone calls routed to the engineers and the city employees who came up with this idea. The fact that they put a young girl on the front lines of the pissed off people is bullshit and cowardly. I'm sure she's getting every call, from which she said she was really busy today. When I apologize for her for being put on the calls for this, she said, well, thick skin and a smile. I hope this fee scale can be reevaluated, especially for the people who put zero water into the system. I don't mind paying a fee. However, as you can see, this fee just seems outrageous for my small family. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, it looks like Michael Cisneros is up next.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. I'd like to bring a few things to your guys' attention. The system is broken. Your guys' system of communication to the public is broken. It's been broken for approximately 20 years. The newspaper has been dead for a very long time. It's just like none of us advertise in the phone book anymore because it doesn't work. And it's the same thing with the communication from the city council to the public. I can bet you that probably 95% of the people in this room today have never heard about this until the last month, okay? I know I haven't. I attend a lot of stuff that you guys have going on, lots of city council meetings, come and talk to you guys about things that I agree with or disagree with, and I still believe that there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done here, and I think that there's a lot of research that doesn't happen before things got brought out to the public in a lot of different areas, not just this particular area. You know, I can talk about several things that I've spoken about in the last couple of years that research hasn't been done, and or you have inaccurate information. And so I really think that we need to work on that to be able to inform the people, to be able to get information from you guys. Your guys' website is there. It's very difficult to navigate. Every time I go, I have to try to get in a different fashion to be able to see what's actually going on the city council agenda. And then it's difficult to even get the information. Sometimes the videos will upload, sometimes they won't upload. I think that there needs to be some way of being able to communicate with the public. Maybe you guys just send out a mass email to everybody that's willing to give you their email address, and that's a good way to be able to communicate. But the system is broken. I agree with a lot of these folks in what they're saying. I will tell you, I have a vacant lot that is under 9,000 or under 10,000 square feet that I got a $60 bill for today. That's higher than my taxes for that whole property for the year if you add it up. I've got several rental properties, and I'm starting to slowly watch those come in. I don't even want to see what my house is going to do because I created a large driveway, you know. I will also say on my house, I have lots of retaining ponds that were built in, so everything that drains into those retaining ponds, and there is nothing that goes out to the city's streets. I only have one paved street surrounding my house, and the other 3 streets sit higher than my property lines. So, and I do believe that, you know, there needs to be a way to generate funding for these things that we've got going on. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We need to be able to hire grant writers. You guys spend so much money paying all these firms to be able to provide you information. Maybe it's adequate or great in some locations, but it's not for every place. And so when we spend these high dollars, and I see them when I read some of the budgets that you guys have, you know, sometimes we're spending 30, sometimes we're spending $200,000 on paying these firms to be able to do this stuff, when you guys can hire a grant writer that is very good at being able to get money for streets, gutters, groundwater, all of these types of things. They've got a proven history that they can be able to do this.
Mr.
Pay them
Cisneros,
good money to do it.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up. If you can wrap up, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'd appreciate it if you guys consider those things. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And lastly, we have got Aaron Martin or Arvin. Thank you, Arvin Martinez. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for taking your time to listen to us all. When I purchased Rinkard Auto Salvage over 10 years ago, you know, that's something as a child that entertained me. It was a salvage yard. It was something that I never thought I'd be able to own. But now I'm being punished for being able to buy that place. I have a piece of property, as Mr. Linker stated earlier, that drains onto the railroad, and the railroad, vice versa, drains onto me. Listening to the railroad being exempt from this, when I came in, when I bought this property, I went up to a city, can we state names, or is that?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, is that on?
I think you're good now.
Okay.
It would be best if you didn't state names,
Okay.
just so
So
we're keeping
anyway,
people out of it.
when I initially purchased the salvage yard, I knew that the viaduct was coming in, so I wanted to clean up some loose ends, maybe build a building or two to get some of this loose scrap contained so not everybody would have to see my mess. But when I went up to the city planner, he said, well, you can't do that, so it's a non-conforming C2 property. But if you're willing to put curb and gutter, essentially do the city's job, and drain it onto the railroad, we would consider this. Who in their right mind, I can't fight the railroad. If I start draining water onto the railroad, how do you think that's going to work for me? It's not. Now, I have to disagree with the statements. I am also a business owner in Cheyenne, Wyoming, under the same name. I brought the service that I provide here in Laramie to Cheyenne. My Cheyenne bill, I own almost as much property as I do here, is not anywhere close to what you are going to want me to pay for this. And I will let you know that from what you want me to pay for this, this is going to be over $1,000 a month. I cannot afford that. I have to pass the cost on to my customer. How long will I last in business doing that? There's eBay, there's a lot of other things that I have to compete with daily to be competitive, and I cannot be competitive paying this kind of money. It makes no sense. When we had a flood 4 years ago, I have no storm sewer in sight. 4 blocks away is where the nearest one is. I'm all about improving the infrastructure so that when we get this 70-year flood or whenever it's going to be, that we have means of controlling this. But I do have another question for you, and I asked a smart businessman, I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but who owns the rainwater? Who owns the water? I don't think it's the city of Laramie. It's probably the state of Wyoming. And that's a question that I'd like to be answered. Looks like I'm up on time, but reflecting the same concerns that everybody's brought tonight, West Laramie is in need of infrastructure. North 3rd, North 2nd is in need of infrastructure. I understand that it has to be paid with some means, but at the end of the day, you got to give us local business owners a chance to be able to make a living, no different than Mr. Hunky said about True Value. We need to rethink this, and I congratulate the previous council members that voted against this. This needs to be brought to light, and things need to be more public so we can vote on it. Title 15 or whatever it is, it doesn't do it for anybody. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Arvin. A couple quick notes. That looks like all that I have for the public comment. Is that correct? Oh, sorry, we've got one in the audience still too, so come on up. If you'll state your name for the record, that would be great.
My name is Sandy Reese, and I want to address an issue that I've not heard anyone else mention, and that is the fact that the city pays great lip service to affordable housing. However, for a lot of people, what I am hearing, who own rentals, they have seen their water bills increase, their sewer bills increase, there's been a fee added to it, and now that I am hearing from many of these people that the addition of this cost to their bills for their rental properties is going to be resulting in a pass-through cost to their tenants. Therefore, decreasing the amount of affordable housing out there in the Laramie community. And I know that a lot of these folks telling me these stories, they don't want to raise their rents, but they can't afford not to. And so in doing so, what a lot of them are telling me they're going to do is they're either going to sell their properties, they're going to turn them into owner-occupied properties, they're going to turn them into Airbnbs, taking them off of the market as rental properties, therefore reducing the amount of affordable housing that you have in this community because they can't afford to do otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. All right, others in the audience who would like to speak, come on up. And if you'll share your name for the record, we'd appreciate that.
David Cutbirth. I sat on the homeowners board for Cottonwood Estates out in West Laramie. Otherwise, there'd be about another 40 people here. I've only had 30 to 45 or 40 calls, emails, unlike yourselves, I'm sure. We have a range of our homeowners paying from our average of $30 a month to where one's paying $231 a month. So where mine's going to be about $480 a year, that individual's going to be over $2,700 a year. I think that we're all for improving City of Laramie. I just want to see it done fairly and on a fair basis. I don't see that a neighbor should have to pay that much more than myself, and I don't want to pay that much myself either, but I appreciate your time on this matter.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Others, come on up. Oh, we got one before you, and then we'll go your way. Welcome. If you'll state your name.
My name is Stephanie Kolka Carter, and I'm a resident and fourth generation. I've got a mother, myself, daughter, and grandchildren that are here. I'm invested in Laramie, Wyoming. I love my hometown. My question is, and I don't know if anyone can answer it, University of Wyoming, are they going to be paying? Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, come on up. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Shane Sweat. I ran for House District 13 in 2024. I'm going to run for it again in 2026. I've been getting calls all week, and I can tell you that the majority of people, one guy just called me right before I came in again. His bill was, I think he said $54 a month. He got his new bill for a very small building, and he's commercial, and now he's $189. So that's a big difference, guys. That's a huge difference. And so when you're looking at it as the people that are calling me are feeling like this is a theft of wealth, like you are purposely targeting a business. And that's what everyone's really complaining about. I don't understand. We have an infrastructure set up already. And these flood pictures that I see up there are the same flood pictures when I go pick up a car that did get flooded out and it's sitting in the middle of the street. You know what I do? I walk over and grab the branches and I pull them out of the gutter, and then it drains. I'd say most of this is not an infrastructure problem. It's a branch fell from a giant storm. They're dead. So if we pull them out and it drains, man, I feel bad I had to tow this guy because he got water in his intake, but it's a pretty simple fix. Not all this is bad. And the one that's bad's on Canby, of course, right there where the drainage is by the park, but I think the state did a ton of work down there for drainage just this last summer, so we'll see how that works out. But that's what I'm hearing from everybody, is they're just flat thinking you guys are stealing money from us. And then if we do an improvement, so you got a section of dirt on the side of your house and you decide to concrete it, now we got to pay more because we got rid of the mud that was over there, that was running into the neighbor's fence? I don't think we should penalize people for trying to improve the property in Laramie. I think we should definitely be on the people's side. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Welcome, Christopher.
Hi there, thank you. My name is Christopher Diley, and I'm homeless here, and the reference to the affordable housing, I was very pleased to find Interfaith informed me that there were several places where $700 a month, and I could afford that if I could get into it. The problem is that they said it's based through Zulu, and I don't have an email. I've been homeless for 27 years. and they told me simply because I don't have an email, they can't help me. So I'm like, here's some affordable housing that I could get into, and I can't because I don't have an email. That's like absurd. And they would turn me away because of that. And they also said that they couldn't help me. Now, when you had the 2015 city council meeting on the ordinance, the anti-discrimination ordinance, I spoke at that meeting, and I spoke in favor of it. And
Christopher, I am sorry to interrupt, but we are on the topic of surface water drainage.
Yeah, I understand, but you're talking about affordable housing in relation to this, and,
Okay.
and that's what I'm talking about, is
Continue. Go
affordable
ahead.
housing, yeah. And when I spoke at that meeting, after I spoke at that meeting, I went to a property office here, and they said, yeah, we've got a place for $700. They showed it to me, a shabby little apartment downtown. I said, that's great, I can do this. I just needed a deposit. So I went to Interfaith, and I asked them, can you give me a deposit for this? They said, no. This was days after I spoke at that anti-discrimination ordinance, and they refused to help me. And that's their MO, to help people with a deposit to get into a place. I've been homeless for 27 years, and they would not help me, and they would not give me a reason why. What a coincidence that it came just days after I spoke at that anti-discrimination place, and they wouldn't help me. Okay, so that's what's going on now. I'm being opposed. I'm experiencing opposition to trying to get out of being homeless, and I'm dealing with possible rectal cancer. I had a proctologist tell me I'm in need of a surgery for rectal cancer, for what he says might be rectal cancer. He says that anal fissure and thrombus most definitely needs surgery, and I can't do it because it might involve fecal incontinence, and I can't be homeless with fecal incontinence.
Christopher, I am so sorry to hear all of this. I would be happy to talk to you afterward if you want to talk a little bit more
Well,
about
this does
some of
pertain, and you know it pertains, and I'm right on topic, because that's exactly what you were talking about, affordable housing. I could get into it if I was not receiving opposition because I'm a homeless person and undesirable, and I got people telling me that they won't help me. VOA and Interfaith will not help me. Why? They won't give me a reason why.
I would love to talk to you afterward, if you can wait around a little bit. Thank you. Other folks speaking to the surface water drainage fee.
Eric Henderson. I reviewed December 3rd City Council meeting. On the 3rd of December, it was the third and final reading. It was the adoption day for this body to say, July 1st, we're going to move forward with something. What's concerning to me in my comment regarding this whole thing is it seems like a lot of justification after the fact comes about. Members of this continuing council on that particular evening referred to this measure as a tax. I think that was appropriate, Micah. You don't necessarily listen to one another. As city council representatives elected by us, you don't necessarily listen to one another, because on third reading, one of you asked a very diligent question. It was bypassed and referred from Janine Jordan to the city attorney on that particular day. Souther didn't know really the funding justification on that day. It was not said it was 15 like it was tonight. It wasn't said that it was 16. That's concerning to me, that on a final reading, third final reading, this body in 2024 December didn't know before engaging in moving forward with something so important to have such chaos. And it's been worked on since 2010. I think it was very well said earlier. It's a very broken system. Thank you.
Thank you. Others in the room who would like to share thoughts, comments?
I do have one question still that nobody talked about, and so sorry.
Come on up.
Johnny Vasquez, been a resident for 55 years. So I was already noticing on your guys' website that you already calculated in 2026, you're already jumping it up about 9 cents on this. Can somebody answer that? Why you guys already figured that and how?
If council is open to taking this question, so because I think probably other people are curious, I would be open to having this answered.
Well, I was just thinking since they're here and we paid them good money, they could tell us how they've already come up with that.
For sure. Come on up.
So when we did the initial rate model, we established the rate projection for 10 years. It was, in the rate model, what an adjustment would be needed for and the changes in the program. And in that rate model is the rate for next year at $1.75. That was a recommendation, but the adoption process is in your control, not mine. And so I'm not sure what the process was that you used to adopt that number, or if it is based on a 2-year budget. I don't know your process, but I can tell you that that number came from the rate model that we developed for the 10-year projection.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other comments from the audience? Online?
Mayor, we have an H. Bosler.
H. Bosler, if you can turn on your mic and turn on your camera, we welcome your comment.
Vice Mayor, they should have received an invitation to be promoted to a panelist.
Be hidden behind a window.
Mayor, with the council's permission, I could allow them to talk without a camera. It is against council rules of procedure, though, so it would take a majority vote of the council.
Would anyone move to allow this person to speak off camera and to provide some background on why we have this rule in place? There were some situations that were, I guess, don't know quite how to characterize them, not appropriate for any space that we experienced in the last few years, and so that is why we have the requirement of the camera. Because it's a work session, we can't vote on it.
For procedure, I think we can do that. However, we can't take any action on any other items, but I think for procedure.
For procedure, we are okay to vote?
Incorrect.
I'm okay with it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I ask that if it does go off the rails, we quickly shut that down? Be prepared for that. Thank you. Mr. or Mrs. Bosler, if you would like to speak on the topic. And I can't tell if you're on mute based on where our...
They are still muted.
You are on mute. If you can unmute yourself. Seems like we're having some trouble with this. If you would be willing to email your comments to council@cityoflaramie.org, we will be happy to read those. Okay, sorry about that. Other comments? Yes.
Vice Mayor. We do have Brett Glass online and one other after that.
Excellent. Okay, Mr. Glass. If you can turn your camera off, and we would like to hear from you. There we go. We can see you now.
It's Mayor, members of council. Can you see and hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. Okay, I apologize for not being there. I was participating in a webcast, and now I'm coming back to speak. Anyway, my comment is just that, well, it seems to be a trend nowadays that government officials on all levels are seeking to violate the law to accomplish their desired agendas, whether it's the White House violating due process or Wyoming cities attempting to override the state legislature. And unfortunately, what we have here is an example of that. When I spoke to council in opposition to the stormwater runoff tax last December, and it passed anyway. I was at least comforted by the fact that before it could go into effect, the voters would have to approve it. It wasn't in my bingo card the city would attempt not only to implement the tax without voter approval, but to collect it in a way that's contrary to the plain language of the state statute. Title 16, Chapter 10 of the Wyoming statutes states unambiguously that a governing body shall not fund a surface water utility until the proposition to impose the means of financing the surface water drainage utility has been submitted to and adopted by the electors. Now, the ordinance was adopted, but the election has not occurred. It's therefore not legal for the city to impose the tax. And by the way, it is a tax, not a fee for a service, since it's assessed against your property and imposed without you signing up for anything, without any sort of election. Without any sort of election. Now, paragraph B of the same chapter requires that the tax be collected by the taxing authority in the area. That's the county treasurer. That's not the city's utility billing system. So here we have two violations of state law. I really think that we need to seriously consider correcting this and doing the right thing. Now, I want to emphasize that if the city does want to fund the city surface water drainage system, it can. Title 15 says it can, but only if the voters approve the method by which it's financed. And so what I'd like to ask is that please, as a result of tonight's meeting, do the right thing. Draft a resolution to submit this tax to the voters instead of attempting to ram it through in spite of them. And at the same time, look at addressing some of the other complaints we've heard tonight. I think it's really important that we do this right. I think it's really important that we communicate well with the public. And I especially think it's important that we follow state law. I'm running out of time here, so that's all I really have to say. I hope you will consider that resolution at the very next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. City Clerk, who was the other person online?
Vice Mayor Linda Devine.
Okay, thank you. If you can let Ms. Devine on. Ms. Devine, if you can turn on your camera, and you'll have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to appear, Mayor and Council. I've been sitting here tonight just listening to everybody, and first of all, I'd say that I appreciate how everybody's come forward. Obviously, there's a lot of concern, and I think most people have handled it really well. I know y'all do everything you can to get out information, and I guess that's kind of what I'm wondering here. I know I have taken the initiative to get email alerts and things like that, but it sounds like a lot of folks haven't. I was one of the ones that wasn't aware of this, but it's also because I had not stayed on top of it. I will also say, too, that my bill doubled, but I guess I'm just hoping that City Council will try to figure out a way to perhaps find out other ways to start communicating so that we don't have this kind of reaction. And I do truly appreciate the presentation tonight and the effort that you're making. I'm also glad that the city manager let everybody know that she lives here. So hopefully we can put that to rest. But I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. And I just wanted to jump on and just say I appreciated the community trying to come out and express their feelings, but just urging everybody again, there's ways to stay on top of these things, and sometimes it takes a little bit of an effort, but you can go on the website. I know you do things on Facebook. I get email alerts. So that's all I wanted to say. I appreciate y'all and appreciate the effort that you're making.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. Others online?
Mayor, that concludes all the hands raised online.
Great, thank you. I just want to once again thank each of you for coming out. I know you took the time out of your day to share your concerns, and I mean, I think I can speak for all of us that we appreciate you engaging that way. We know that we can always do better communicating. We always can, right? And so we'll continue to think about ways to better do that. I do want to share, if you don't, and this, I'm not trying to say this would solve the problem, but there is a City Flash email that you can sign up for, and I think you can just go city, just search City of Laramie, City Flash, and you will get email updates to show what's on the agenda, other things that are happening in town. So that's one thing I'd encourage, and we will continue to think about how we can, better communicate some of these things. City Clerk.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to let you know, if they go cityoflaramie.org/notify me, that is the system that they can sign up and select what type of notifications they'd like to receive.
Thank you. And if our public comment period is closed, unless you have an additional something you want to add, Mr. Hershey?
Yes.
To the stormwater, we typically only do one comment per person.
It was public comment, you hadn't stated that yet, so I had my hand up.
Come on up. We'll take one more.
So, you are all ward representatives. That is in your job title, representative. We've had a lot of people here who you represent, who you're supposed to represent. All of these people want the same thing. They think this is bad. Well, the vast majority, I should say, here who have spoken tonight are against this plan. So how about you represent us? I mean, that's your job. Every single one of you guys. That's your job. Represent. When we call you, when we email you, when we send you Facebook messages, we expect you to respond. The mayor, personally, I've sent her some messages that haven't been responded to since April.
I'd appreciate you not calling out individuals, please.
I called out a title. And, if you don't respond to us, pretty soon we get upset because we're not being represented at that point. Take that to heart.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We are now closing public comment on this agenda item. Again, thank you all. If you have other thoughts, if you want to talk to us more, council@cityoflaramie.org is how you can reach us. And again, thank you. Let's take 5 minutes and before our next work session. So we will slowly bring this meeting back to order, and hopefully he'll have brought enough for everybody, but we won't count on that. So moving on to our next work session, which is Laramie recreational vehicle and trailer parking update. And this is Chief Brown presenting as, yes, Chief Brown presenting. Welcome, Chief Brown. Thank you for sticking with us this long.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Council. I am a little disappointed, maybe offended slightly, but nobody stayed for my portion of the presentation, but I understand that last one went a little bit long, so I'll try to get through this as quickly as I can. And my primary focus tonight, this was requested by Council, is to just kind of give an update on where we're at and kind of our enforcement efforts on the law enforcement side, and really some of the complaint process that we're going through and seeing in this area of parking enforcement. So just to refresh your recollection, this is the current ordinance, which essentially says that if there is a recreational vehicle or trailer that with a registration or VIN that comes back to the residents on record, that you can park one recreational vehicle or trailer in that spot. And at the bottom of this slide is the updated ordinance that was passed last year to change the parking fines. The very bottom one is $40 across the board, $40 across the board, and that's what you would see for this type of violation. And here in Laramie, we'll go through a couple other ones here in a second, but this is the one that we primarily deal with. And I can tell you, we'll go through some of the statistics on a couple slides down. But this is the one that I deal with the most. And to put it in comparison with some other parking-related complaints or traffic-related complaints we get, I'm usually getting a speeding type of violation complaint probably once a week, maybe once every other week. And I get a trailer parking violation complaint directly to me, maybe 2 or 3 a year. And when I first got here, we were pretty light on the enforcement on this area, and part of the reason for that is we were waiting for some legal opinions to come through on abandoned vehicles. And once that was done, we started heavily enforcing this over the last 12 months or so, and you'll see those stats here in a second.
Chief Brown, can I interrupt you for just a minute? City Clerk, and maybe other people aren't having this issue, when I click on the 2025 recreational vehicle parking update, I am not getting that link to work right now. Is anybody else having that issue, or is it just... Okay, it's just me. Okay, that's what I thought, because it was good before. Sorry, and continue.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So this kind of defines what a recreational vehicle and a trailer is. We do have a little bit of a different recognition or definition for recreational vehicle here in Wyoming or at Laramie than you'll see in some of the other cities like Cheyenne, but it's primarily focused around living quarters for the recreational vehicle, camping, or travel use, which we'll go over a little bit further here in a second. This is another section that we come in contact with, not as frequently, but we will use it to enforce occupied motorhomes, people who may be living in their motorhomes in residential areas or other areas throughout the city. And I highlighted the one section that's the most pertinent, where it is unlawful for a person within city limits unless it's approved by our planning department or they do have some permit. There is some temporary permit in this area. And we just saw that, I think, 2 council meetings ago, or maybe last council meeting, when our local RV park requested a temporary permit to have temporary housing in their RVs that are there on site. The next slide just kind of further elaborates what the last slide did and gives some additional definitions on recreational vehicles and their proper permitting and usages. So our community service officers, so I put this slide in here because this is really our primary enforcer for the city of Laramie. We have currently have 2 community service officers, and later on in the presentation I'm hoping to give an update on our downtown parking situation, some of the efforts that we've put forth to address the situation, and the ultimate outcome, which most likely will lead to a 3rd community service officer, primarily focusing on building relationships with our business downtown and enforcement efforts in that area. Okay, so it might be a little confusing, this side and the next slide. So this side is specific to violation responses, and you can see the total numbers there in blue. And in this past year, we had approximately 26 either complaints or officer-initiated activity. 9 of those 26 were officer-initiated calls, and what that looks like is if an officer is driving down the street and sees somebody that may be in potentially violation, and they stop and they decide to initiate enforcement actions, or at least an investigation on their own to determine if there's some type of violation. And then the 17 is citizen complaints. So even though I, as the chief of police, may get 2 or 3 calls a year in this area, as a department going into LARC or dispatch communications, emergency communications, they receive 17 complaints requesting investigation for those violations. So that's a different number than the citations that we issue, and it's typically much higher for the citations that we issue in this area. And I'll be the first one to admit, in our other numbers, it's done through our our CAD system, our call analysis data system. And what that tracks is calls coming into dispatch, and lots of times those are used by key phrases. So we might have an overwhelming potential parking violation call for service. Well, that could be overtime parking downtown, that could be a trailer violation. So the way that we decipher what it is we put in the call notes exactly what the reporting party is saying, whether it's an RV violation, a trailer violation. So when we research this, the best way for us to do that is key phrases. So we're looking at the key phrases in this area of violation, RVs, trailers, and that's referenced on the last slide. This slide comes directly from courts. So this citation number is court citations that were processed through municipal court. And last year, you can see our increased enforcement efforts. And in my opinion, the reason why it was so high is because we had gone several months, if not years, without enforcing it. And there's a variety of issues for that. We were down 1 CSO for a significant amount of time. It wasn't our focus area. We didn't have a lot of complaints in that time. We were focused our efforts in other areas. And we really wanted to make sure that the community members that were having these issues, that their problems were being addressed. So that's why you saw a significant increase that year. And typically, once we educate and provide that education to citizens, you'll see that number drop probably for a relatively decent amount of time, 2 or 3 years, slowly creep back up, heavy enforcement efforts and education, and then it'll drop back down again. So it's not the same type of violation as you see with speeding violations, stop sign violations. It's a little different because everybody typically knows what the speed is, and they're making a conscious choice to violate that. As we have new residents move in, a lot of times they're not familiar with these types of ordinances. So we try to educate them first before issuing a citation. If it gets to that point, then we'll go down that road. So this is just a hotspot map that Owen and the city manager's office put together for me just to kind of show where the heavy enforcement was in 2024, just to give the council a better visual representation of what we're looking at. And it's pretty consistent throughout the city where we see these types of violations, mostly in residential areas, as is to be expected. What do other cities look like? So I get this question a lot. And, as I went through different cities, and not just here, but also on the Front Range, what I really noticed is it kind of depended on the type of city and what their primary function was and what type of clientele they're servicing and the resident population. So if you look at a city like Jackson or that area, that region, it's a very different type of clientele that they're representing, or residents or community member that they're representing, where their peak source of income is tourism. So if you look at their hotel prices, significantly higher than almost anywhere in the nation for good portions of the year. So for that reason, they have pretty strict enforcement on RVs and trailers. They don't want people living in RVs. They don't want people visiting and staying in RVs outside of campsites. So most of their violations circle around that function. Overnight parking in the winter is prohibited, and they're likely to tow. This is per a police officer that I spoke with over there, and they're pretty strictly enforced year-round. There are a few exceptions. And then you go to Cheyenne. So as I mentioned, I highlighted their definition. Their definition's a little bit different. It's based on feet and length, and they recently changed this ordinance to basically go, I believe it was from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And the reasoning for that was for snow removal operations. So I had an opportunity to talk with our team here. And they brought some pretty good points, and they really compared, some of our, what would be classified as a trailer, an RV, to the size of, say, a supersized F-350 or a Chevy 2500 long bed. Those are pretty good sized trucks that are in that 20-foot, 21-foot range. So you're looking at a 4-foot difference here in Cheyenne, but those vehicles also could impact snowplow operations depending on where they're parked and how long they're parked there. And then Casper, so they allow 5 days a month. So if you're coming in and you have a family coming in, or you have an RV that you need to get serviced and that needs to be parked in your residence for a certain period of time, they can do up to 5 days a month without a permit. That's a typo there where it says with a permit. You can do it without a permit, but you can get a permit, $250 annually, and then that 5 days a month goes up. And that has to be approved, I believe it was by their code enforcement function. I could be wrong on that, it might have been planning. Who assessed that area, made sure it was safe for it to be parked there, and then it still had to be parked inside, in front of that residence that it's registered to. Oh, sorry, Nancy, did I do it again? Rock Springs, very strict, no trailers, no RVs. If you're loading or unloading, then it can be there for up to 100 hours. Essentially the same thing that we kind of saw with Casper with a smaller time frame. And then Gillette kind of mirrors, or Cheyenne mirrored Gillette, and they have a seasonal allowance for RVs, but it still has to be parked in front of your property. And this is just a comparison of all of them. The only reason why I put in ours is $40 currently. I did put to be determined under review because we're speaking about it tonight. And with that, I'll take any questions that you guys may have in reference to the RV enforcement functions.
Councilor Lockhart.
Thank you, Sister Mayor. Thank you, Chief Brown. The reason I asked for this work session is because I'm getting a lot of questions, and I'm one of those people that I'm so tired of a gazillion RVs parked down our street. And snowmobile trailers and what have you. There's a snowmobile trailer, and they're good people, but it's parked, and it's an extra long one on the corner by our house. And so when you try to cross that street, my two little girls, the street is bent, they cannot see. Okay, and it's a traffic hazard. And then I see the same campers parked in the same spot, never used, maybe once a year. And so, and I've heard people say it clutters up our neighborhood. It takes down our property values. My idea is to find a better way. I almost like Rock Springs. Can't have them out there, but I know that's impossible. We're a recreational type community, right? My idea is, as a council, is seasonal. A boat should not be out in front of the property in December. And I don't think an RV needs to be out in the property in July. Well, on July, but I mean in December. You know, an RV shouldn't be out there in January, right? And then one of my friends brought up, find a retention pond and you're going to find someone parking a trailer there. And it says to be adjacent, but you drive around town and there's trailers everywhere. And I told some of the staff I was going to take a bunch of pictures, and I'm like, we all know the problem. It's finding a solution that I think could clean up some of the neighborhoods. And some of the neighborhoods, like north of Walmart, you get a camper on this side, a camper on this side, you can't get two cars between that street. So that's why I brought it up, is to see how we can improve, but not take away, because I know Cheyenne was going to try to do it. You could only have it there 72 hours a day, right? Well, if you are an active outdoors person and you want your camper at your house, I understand in the summer, but when it's still there in December and you haven't used it in 2 years, that's a problem. But I don't want to call on the guy all the time. I think if we had a regulation, they know what it is. I think that can solve some of the problems. So that's my pedestal I'm talking about tonight, and I appreciate you sharing what other communities are doing, because I'd like to find them, the nice balance.
Do you have a response to that, or do you want to, before I go to Councilor Newman?
Just quickly, Vice Mayor, if I may, I have spoken with Mr. Japp, and we have had a handful of situations where RVs have been parked on the corner and it hasn't been safe for the community to either drive through that intersection or make turns. And they have addressed it where they painted the curbs yellow and made it a safe amount of space for people to drive appropriately, turn appropriately. So if there is an intersection that you would like us to take a look at, or a corner or an area in the city, I'm sure that their team and ours would be more than happy to do that.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Newman.
That kind of goes along with what I was going to say, so mine's just a comment. I don't have any questions. West Laramie is notorious for this. And the bad part is we can't paint the corners there, right? So what do we do? And I'm sure there's campers and trailers over there that people live in, but then when you get a report about it, it's like, oh no, we don't live there. So like, as a council, like these are things that probably are important. How we address them, I have no idea, right? Because then we get into property rights and those kinds of things. But like West Laramie is a good example where we can't paint the corners, and there's a camper on every corner. It seems like Taylor Street's horrible for it, and so like, finding how to fix that, I don't know how to do.
Councilor Frieden.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. And yeah, I see, City Engineer Japp, and I see one member of the Traffic Safety Commission in the audience. In my short time on that Traffic Safety Commission, I know we've had a few people bring up issues, public comment, and it gets addressed by the city engineering staff, police that are there. But I think it's definitely something that Traffic Safety Commission might have looked at before my time, but, I'll bring that up in our next meeting and talk about it too and see, because I know that the city does a good job of taking those issues and creating discussions and trying to figure out solutions with that body. We have 3 new people in the last 2 months, so I think that's a great thing that I'll take forward based on this conversation of the Traffic Safety Commission.
Other questions or comments? One question that I have, and I don't actually, it's kind of silly because I don't know if anybody actually has an answer to this, but if the council were to do something to say, okay, seasonal trailers, boats, all the things, not on the roads, if it's not the right season, what is our storage situation in Laramie? Like, do we have enough to cover all the parts and plays, things? Yeah, please. If you know, I would take anybody's answer to that.
Built a whole new facility outside of town for this. Plus, if you go over to a lot of the storage facilities like Storage Star on Boswell, they store them. I mean, there's a lot of storage facilities that do that.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay.
There are places, yes.
Great. Oh. First to Councilor Rehill and then to the mayor.
Cool. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I also just want to be cognizant of the storage conversation because that costs money. And I think if we've learned anything from tonight that, money is tight for folks. And so, and I also think about West Laramie too, right? I'm over there and it's the Wild West and people like it that way. And, right? And so putting too much regulation, I think we can get there. I think all of our concern is the safety aspect, maybe some of the aesthetic too, but yeah, I think for sure we need to just be careful when, commanding folks to get storage for things. It's going to be a rough conversation. Thanks.
I think you are predicting probably pretty accurately there, Councilor Rehill. Councilor Bowling. Oh, sorry. I told the mayor I'd go to her first. Sorry. Mayor.
Thank you. We've had this discussion in council since I've been on council a couple of times. And, it's both the aesthetic that you've just got campers everywhere in a neighborhood, and it just feels very cluttered, but it's also safety. And there's one in my neighborhood where I consistently run a stop sign because and I should report it. I'm sorry I didn't, Chief. But I had a camper at my property, and it was parked on 15th Street. And after we had this discussion, I felt like I can't park it there. Number one, I'm on a major thoroughfare. Number two, I'm parked in the bike lane. And number three, it's kind of an obstruction to street cleaning and snow removal. Now, legally, I could continue to park there. But ethically, I felt like I couldn't do that. So we went to storage, and that is $70 a month. It's actually 69 something, but it's $70 a month for storage. So it was a burden to do that, but I felt like I couldn't park there anymore after we had the discussion. So I think it's a real issue. It does clutter up the streets. It does impair street sweeping. It impairs snow removal. And that at the very least, possibly we should think about seasonal. But I think Councilor Vigil brings up a very good point that this places, we're just continuing to place financial burdens on people, but yet we have a city to maintain. And I think sometimes we get into the situations we're into because we keep deferring things until they become problematic. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bowling.
Sorry, I almost forgot what I was going to say. I agree with Councilor Newman. I don't think there's an easy-ish way to solve this problem, and it feels like it does need to happen case by case. And I just, as I'll use my personal anecdote as a way to just be like, everything is complicated and each situation is different, is that I'm one of those people with like a 12-foot single axle trailer that's 55 years old, and it is parked in front of my house in the winter because I don't have a driveway. And then when the roads open up, it's in the woods and moved every 16 days, right? It's not here during the summer because it's recreational and that's what we use it for. And then it's back and it's used through hunting season. And then when the snows come, it sits there until the roads open again. So making a seasonal recommendation doesn't take everybody's like RV needs into account, so.
Thanks. Other thoughts and comments on this one? From council. Thank you, Chief. Oh, you do have more. I was just going to cut you off and say goodnight. Just
That's
kidding.
okay, Vice
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I will say, just to kind of close out the last conversation, if there is something that you think maybe, if there's a vehicle that you think may be in violation of the ordinance, please call us. You can't call too much, so that's what we're here for, and we'll go out and investigate it. Especially in regards to retention ponds. We had a pretty heavy focus on retention ponds and around schools last year. So if you're seeing those issues pop up again, please let us know. And just a couple updates. I know that last year we had a presentation. I provided a presentation during a work session on downtown parking and some possible enforcement solutions. We actually went out to request for proposal. We received 4 proposals on potential parking solutions down there. And essentially what we were hoping to come up with was maybe a type of technology that would be driven through camera enforcement. And unfortunately, the results we got back, all 4 of the companies, none had done a project like this. Most of them had focused on parking structures. And parking structures is very different than our downtown area. So our downtown area has approximately 220 parking spaces that have to be monitored. To do the full downtown parking area, the best, most comprehensive quote we got would involve 38 cameras and 38 poles, 25-foot poles in our downtown area. And I had an opportunity to speak with Director Sherwood this morning, and she voiced some of her concerns with the poles going in, the size of the poles, and also the infrastructure underneath some of the sidewalks due to basements being underneath those areas to be able to support the weight of those poles. So I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know if the technology is there yet in the way that we're looking to utilize it. A parking structure is very different. You can put 1 camera on the entrance, 1 on the exit, and that can monitor how long vehicles have been inside those parking areas. For parking spaces, each space has to be GIS. GIS basically has to create a parking space structure similar to what we just discussed with our houses to track each one of those. And while that's possible, you still need to have a camera or eyes on it, human eyes on it, to ensure that there's a violation. So I think what we're leaning towards doing is potentially having another CSO position, which we already have positions allocated that we've been able to move from other areas in our department to fund this position. But I did want to give you guys an update on what's going on downtown. So potentially having a CSO assigned down there primarily to build relationships with those businesses and work on enforcement issues and other issues that they may have. Secondly, that brings me to some new technology that I'm excited to share with you. So we came, while dealing with this traffic issue and also speeding issues, so like I said before, I usually get a couple complaints a month. I know several of those complaints go through council members, and it's very challenging for us to identify if there's an actual traffic issue or if a citizen has seen 1 or maybe 2 residents drive through an area at a high speed and there's a perceived traffic issue. So typically the way that we handle or investigate those issues is we have a traffic trailer that's actually about to become obsolete because of the batteries and the years on. We've had it for several years. And to get a new one is approximately $14,000 per trailer that can actually track vehicle speeds. Well, we take that trailer, we put it out to the location where the complaint happens, and we'll leave it out there for approximately a week, compile data, and we'll have an idea as to what the speeds were during specific times of the day. The problem with that data is you have a traffic trailer out there telling people to slow down, and then you're getting their speed. So I know that the city manager and I and Eric and I have had several conversations regarding this issue and different traffic studies that they're looking at doing to determine speeds. And we kind of came across this company through Cheyenne. Cheyenne just signed a contract with them. And this company has the ability to, what they do is there's a federal entity that pulls all vehicle speeding data, very similar to what happens with your credit cards or your televisions, your credit cards. It pulls shopper data, scrubs it, it doesn't have any personal information, and then it'll say, hey, so many people at this time bought this product and from this company. So it kind of gives companies the idea of where their advertising dollars should be. Well, this company kind of does the same thing. It basically pulls data from vehicles, from the computers in vehicles, primarily vehicles 2015 and newer. As of, I think they said like 2020, they're getting about every 4 out of 5 vehicles, so over an 80% success rate. And they can tell you exactly what's going on your city streets. It can tell you what parking spaces are being used, what percentage of time they're being used, and then it can give you vehicle speeds. It can tell you speeds around school zones. It can give you stop sign related data for areas that are stop signs as to when people are violating it. And it can do all of this with a simple search. It takes about 20 to 30 seconds. No, you're good. Is it me or you? Mine's red, so maybe my battery's dying. I don't know. So I added some slides in here just to kind of give you an idea of what this company can do. It's a proprietary software primarily used by the federal government at this time, but this company has a contract with them to get the data for this specific purpose. And I believe there's over 250 organizations throughout the United States that are using it now. And basically what it gives me the ability to do is get that traffic trailer data instantly. So if I get a complaint, I can pull up the data, I can share it with a citizen, we can sit down and go over the times of days that they think that there's an issue or potential issue, or if there is a potential issue, then we can have directed enforcement in that area about 2 weeks sooner than we could with a traffic trailer. And then there's also not a traffic trailer sitting out there telling people to slow down. So that might be part of the solution going forward to make sure that we're addressing that area appropriately, making sure it's safe for our citizens. But we'll have actual data in an 80% rate. It can go back up to 5 years, and I would take 80% of vehicle data over 5 years without it being disturbed or putting anything out there telling people to slow down, over 1 week's worth of data where it gets 100%. So we met with traffic, we're the traffic team here, and we had a presentation, and hopefully, and we both think that they'll be able to use it for a lot of their traffic engineering study needs. There still may be some needs for consultants to come in and analyze the data, or for our team to analyze the data, but the data is accessible way faster than it would be in any other circumstance. So the reason why I'm talking about this today, and this is kind of a comparison of traditional versus what they can do, is I hope to bring this before council here in the next couple months. I think it's a tool that's really going to benefit our community. It'll give you, as a council team, the ability to answer complaints significantly faster, and it'll give me, as the chief of police, the ability to address those complaint areas in an appropriate amount of time, the amount of time that our community would expect. And then the cost savings projection, we're estimating that it's going to be around $31,000 a year for this project. And this is a pretty accurate representation of what we're spending on these types of complaints, at least $2,500. And the reason for that is, one, the cost of the traffic trailer, the upkeep of the traffic trailer, the data software that we pay for the traffic data trailer to get the data and maintain the data, and then manpower hours to have a community service officer or police officer go out there, put the trailer out, retrieve it from wherever it's charging at, whether it's the police department or the MOC, put it out to wherever the complaint is, leave it out there for a week, make sure that we're consistently monitoring it to make sure it's working correctly, and then retrieving that data from the software that we're also paying for. So there actually may be a cost reduction once we get it going and making sure that it's doing what we want it to do. We'll see if that's the case or not. But I think that's the last slide I have, Mr. Manager.
I just wanted to wrap up and add a few comments if I could, Mayor. So when the chief first encountered this use for public safety, I will tell you I was super energized when I found this out, and I want to just reinforce what the chief has said about the usefulness of this data across many departments of the city. I asked him to reach out to Public Works. Of course, he mentioned they've talked, but the city's been spending many dollars on traffic studies, and so this just could be a really fantastic tool for us. I am not certain yet, I haven't circled back yet with Chief Brown to determine if we have adequate budget for this, but I do think that if we don't, I will recommend bringing it forward for approval when we get it all figured out with a companion budget amendment, because I think it's a force multiplier and it's going to really save us money in the long run.
Great.
If I can add one more thing that I forgot to mention. Kind of the way that we stumbled upon this project was because of the cost for the AI parking program downtown. In my opinion, it's probably more than we're willing to pay to get the service that's provided. I think it's extremely expensive at this point. Maybe that'll change in the future as technology evolves. But this technology, potentially, right now it's on a 2-week delay with the information dump. So you're basically getting 2 weeks worth of information every 2 weeks dumped into the system so you can pull that data. And then it's housed for about 5 years. Well, by the end of this year, the company believes that they'll have it down to 1 week. And then within a matter of a year or two, they think they'll have it instantaneously. So if that's the case, then potentially we would be able to create GIS locations around downtown parking spaces. And we would be able to get notifications when someone's been parked there over 2 hours or over whatever the time limit is, the overtime time limit that this body determines is appropriate. And then they would be able to notify our team. We would be able to send a CSO or officer down there to confirm that a vehicle is there, and then we would be able to issue citation. I still think that's a few years out based on the conversations I've had, but that's the way that I see this type of technology evolving.
Great. Councilor Doherty.
The National League of Cities, they talked about such a thing for speed studies, and it seemed like those folks were offering it as you could rent the unit or rent their services for a couple weeks to do some speed studies. So that might be a way to dip our toe in the water, as it were. I'm kind of not happy about that gets scrubbed, and the data's all now in the hands of all kinds of unscrupulous people already, so I don't know, it's a little big brothery for me, but I do see the advantage. If the scrub data shows speeds, it shows the average speed. I was wondering what those, the speed camera that was recently added to Beaufort Street, the ones that tell you what are the, it seems like they've got to be coming down in cost with the solar and LED technology getting cheaper, because if it just slows people down, then that's effective, even if we found out, oh, you know what, maybe speeding isn't a problem here. Well, if it reminds people to slow down, then that's a benefit, They just slow down if they think there's a police car there, like in Centennial.
Sure. Through you, Vice Mayor. So that one that we have on Beaufort is just a notification. So it's a solar panel and a speed notification, and those run approximately $2,500 to $3,000. The ones that actually track the data and can store it for a longer term or a longer period of time require additional software and computer components to it, and those run approximately, the last quote I got was approximately $14,000 for that system.
Other questions? Yes, Councilor Freed.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. Thanks, Chief, for presenting this, and Councilor Lockhart for bringing this to our work session. So could this be something like if a member of the public's like, hey, there's someone coming down my street, every day going 50 miles an hour, it's 20, but then, so maybe the police could go and have more enforcement in that area around those times, maybe deters those people. Is this something that you could see working to be like, okay, we can collect this data really fast and effectively without putting a big, speed camera out there and then people are slowing down? Could you use it for something like that? Is that kind of one application for it?
Through you, Vice Mayor, council member. So our team has already been looking at different ways that we can use this. And when we met with the team, we had them do a demo for us, and they we had them pull up any streets in the city that averaged over 7 miles per hour. And there were 7 streets in the city that averaged over 7 miles an hour. So, and then it's not the whole street, it's usually a portion of the street, but those areas, we would have direct enforcement in those areas specific to those times. So yes, you're getting that data 2 weeks later, but it wouldn't tell you the specific vehicle, like if a citizen's like, hey, the same Ford Fusion is driving past my, maybe not a Fusion, it's a good example. Maybe Ford Mustang is driving past my street going 70 miles an hour every day. They would give us the vehicle description and we'd be able to go out there and then we would use the data to confirm, yeah, it does look like there is an uptick in speeding in that area during that time, and then we can direct enforcement. But specifically, it would give us areas in the city, and 7 streets is a lot. There's usually 2 or 3 that are on my radar from citizen complaints. And while the speed data will stop it over a period of time, the reality is that we can't afford to, nor would our community probably want, flashing speed signs on every street in the community. But it gives us the ability to send officers and make sure that we're enforcing in those 7 areas. That doesn't mean that we're giving everybody a citation, right? It's a case-by-case basis. But sometimes education is the appropriate manner, or sometimes it's just our police cars being out there. And sometimes even when we have that trailer out there, that data is skewed because the trailer is, in essence, a police car. And people understand that we're tracking that data. So to get raw data like this, it really does give us an accurate depiction of what's going on in those specific areas. So yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Oh, city manager, sorry, I didn't see you there.
I was just going to mention, and the city engineer may want to add to this, but just to give you a reference point in terms of cost and cost effectiveness, you have approved in the budget this year a speed study for the city, which, as you know, we need to have in order to make changes to traffic control devices and speed signs, et cetera, $980,000.
So this could replace that?
Well,
potentially?
that's what we're talking about, and we think it may be able to. Eric, do you have anything you want to add?
Hello, Mayor, through you. I don't know if we could fully replace it. To change speed limits through state statute, it has to have an engineering study that needs to be conducted. The data that is gathered through this would help significantly with those type of studies or that city-wide study that we're talking about and help to recognize those issues. And then as the chief was noting, to be able to gather that data and get a general area of where those problems are, that also it could help in a way of, okay, maybe we don't have a speeding problem throughout the city because we're not seeing it. Let's maybe just focus on these 7 streets that were noted versus let's analyze the whole city. So there's some different ways that it could be used in different scenarios that it could be applied for that could help have significant cost savings with that.
That's great. That seems really promising. Oh, sorry, Mayor. Thanks, Councilor.
I just raised my hand. At the WHAM conference, Mayor Collins of Cheyenne had talked about that they had installed some sort of program that did this type of tracking, and over, as they began to track it, they realized that they had a significant speeding problem in Cheyenne, and they were able to target enforcement, and I believe he gave that in 1 month they had given out something like 1,900 speeding tickets. So he spoke very positively. So I was wondering, Chief Brown, have you talked to the people in Cheyenne? Because I think they have implemented a similar type of system.
Through you, Vice Mayor and Mayor, maybe? Yes, I have. So that's actually how we kind of stumbled upon this. Is we spoke with the lieutenant over there who had helped with the implementation of this, and he spoke their praises. And to be honest with you, I think we're always looking for a way to do business better. And if you look at the way that we're currently doing it, we rely heavily on our citizens to complain about somebody speeding down their street. considering that we have, cell phones in our pockets that can basically tell us anything, anytime, answer any question, and with AI do a whole gauntlet of things that I'm not even up to speed on, that we're still doing it the same way that we were when cars were invented. It's pretty exciting for me and our team to see something like this come about that I think is going to save us manpower, time, but really give us the opportunity to better serve the community.
And I just want to add, I think that it's a far more efficient use of time and resources that for this investment, if you compare that to the time and resources that it takes to try to patrol it other ways. It sounds like Cheyenne has really had significant success, so I'm really interested in pursuing more about this.
And Vice Mayor, if I may add one more thing. One other areas of use that this company is seeing it used for would be a good example of potentially repurposing some of the parking spaces in our downtown area, which I know this board has talked about before, or this council has talked about before. They have the ability to use that 80% over 5 years to say how occupied or what percentage of time and days vehicle spaces are occupied. So if you wanted to transition a space from a full-time regular parking space to potentially a handicap space or maybe a loading zone space, it would be able to tell us what the best, in accordance with traffic engineering's recommendations and plannings, what the best areas for that are spaces, the least used spaces maybe to do that. So it'd help provide them with that data also.
Thank you. And one last question for me, and this one's for City Manager. And if this is, if you can clarify for me. So with that traffic study that we have budgeted for, that is partially or majority through grant funding, is that correct?
That is true. We had applied for a grant jointly with the county, which we did receive. We need to have the study done in order to determine what areas of the city would deserve grant funding for safety improvements. We just found out about this within the last 2 to 3 weeks, so I don't know if we could substitute some of the data from this tool if we purchase it, and then have maybe more funding available to make actual improvements to roadways. I'm going to have to visit with the county about that. At this point, because of the delays at the federal level, we haven't even gotten the grant agreement back, although the county grant writer did tell me that she got a confirmation that we're solid on the grant, and we hope we're going to see an actual grant agreement soon.
Perfect.
So
it would
that's
be
the latest I know.
Yeah, that would be really interesting if we could do that, if we could implement this in this grant-funded project to have more bang for our buck potentially. That would be pretty cool. So thank you for the work on that. Unless there are any more council comments, I'm going to turn it over to the public. And I know that Mr. Diley, I believe, I maybe am saying that correctly. You can correct me again, but come on up and, oh, sorry. The other Christopher, is there something? No, you're good. Sorry, I just didn't know if you, oh, okay, perfect. We'll call you up next.
Okay,
Welcome.
Yeah, you got it right. Thank you. And I just wanted to clarify on the last agenda item, numerous people spoke in relation to the affordable housing, the rates of affordable housing going up due to that agenda item. And my point is that that's irrelevant to me because I can't even get into it as the rates are now. And so I guess I wasn't very clear. So pardon me for being, argumentative. I've got.
You're just fine.
Yeah, stress is hard for me.
You're just fine, and we are glad you are here sharing your thoughts. So continue.
Thank you. And I'll keep this down to 3 minutes. See, my point with this is that this agenda item, it also includes how tents are prohibited in the city of Laramie, except in campgrounds. Tonight, I'm going to go sleep on the ground. It's going to be raining. It's forecasted for rain. I've got nothing to protect me from the elements. I don't even have a tent. All I have is a sleeping bag. But I'm like, what am I going to do when it starts raining? I'm worse than a farm animal. I've got nowhere to go. So I'm like, so if I had a tent and I could put it up, then that would protect me from the elements. But I can't even go anywhere now. So, and my point about the proctologist told me, he said your thrombus, hemorrhoids, and anal fissure are definitely in need of a surgery. And he had set up an appointment, and I didn't want to go through with it because I didn't want my anal sphincter to be cut and have that result in fecal incontinence and be a homeless person sleeping on the ground with fecal incontinence and having nowhere to go to clean up. So I canceled that appointment, and I thought, what I need to do is establish myself somewhere in this country and start that medical process, going again. Go to the urgent care, get a referral to primary care, go to the proctologist, have the surgery done, and do aftercare post-surgery in an apartment or in somewhere where I can deal with that and not be sleeping on the ground where I might have fecal incontinence. And I can't do it, but I can't get established anywhere in this country. I just walked from Boise, Idaho. I hitchhiked from there because they set that law up July 1st, making it illegal to sleep on the ground. I had to leave. So I hitchhiked to here, and I got stranded out by Lyman, and I got stranded. I walked for in 12 hours and 20 minutes. I did 37 miles from Wamisit to Rollins along the I-80. That's averaging right on the dot 3 miles per hour. I'm 60 years old. I've had a minor stroke. I've had a heart attack. And that proctologist said that I might have, that when he was to do the surgery, we would find out then if I have rectal cancer. So I might have rectal cancer right now doing this, and these people won't help me. They mocked me and ridiculed me because they understood. I told them that I had to walk 37 miles. They made fun of me. The VOA and the Interfaith, those people were mocking me, making fun of me. Okay.
Sorry, I don't have this on.
So it's cruelty. I'm experiencing cruelty, and I don't know what to do.
Thank you. Next up, Christopher. Other Christopher. Welcome. If you can state your name.
Stratton, 1659 North 6th Street. In regards to the RVs, etc., I would love the council to kind of look into the possibility of making cheap parking, utilizing city utilities or city spaces, so that it is affordable for everybody, and it's not a safety concern for all of us, because even where I live, there's quite a few people that are parked in bad spots, and it makes it really hard driving or walking, etc. I think that would be a great idea to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that come on up, Mr. Glass. I think you were the last hand I saw.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm back because I finished my webcast. In any case, yes, I just want to comment on two things. First of all, please bring some of these ideas before the Traffic Safety Commission, which I must speak for. I'm speaking as a citizen. It seems like these things deserve to be examined at length, and that'd be a good place to do it. As for the RVs, there are really two categories of issues with RVs here. One is where they're parked when they're not being occupied, when they really should be stored somewhere, and the other is people occupying them. As you know, probably out in the county and in the city, maybe sort of surreptitiously, people, the in-laws will need a place and will suddenly want to live with you, and you put the RV in the driveway, and you'll have them in the RV. That's technically not legal, but people do it all the time. I think we need to consider what we do about that. As for temporary parking, right now, if you have guests, it's illegal to have them stay in their RVs and park on the street outside your house. If it's your RV, you can actually live in it for a day. If it's not, you can't. I think maybe this is something we should rectify. And one thing that I noticed in our current regulations, there is a special carve out for retail outlets that have more than 200 spaces and paved and lit parking lots. In other words, there's a specific carve out in our current ordinances for Walmart, which I find kind of amusing. But smaller businesses can't host RVs, can't store RVs unless they are RV parks. Maybe we could get some of these RVs off the street if we allowed smaller businesses that had the room to store them or host them. So anyway, just some ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing those ideas. All right. And
Sorry, Vice Mayor. We have Linda Devine online.
Great. welcome Linda.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly talk about the speeding and collecting data, because that really concerns me, that there's going to be another entity collecting data, and even though they say that it'll be scrubbed, I just think once it's out there for good. Right now, on the street, right by me that I have to go by every day, there is a, I don't know what the chief called it, but when you're driving, it shows you how fast you're going. And I think a lot of times people just don't realize how fast they're going till they see something like that. But quite frankly, it's actually been good for me to see that, because then I'm like, oh crap, I need to slow down. I would rather see things like that than some kind of software collecting my data. I just think that then it will just snowball into collecting other information. And I'm not normally a paranoid person, but I just think right now there's too many people and government entities trying to collect too much data. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. And I cannot relate at all to seeing a speed sign and slowing down. I'm sure that. Anyway, all right. Any other comments on this item? All right. With that, we will close the public comment and close the council comment on this agenda item, and move on to city council updates. Why don't we start with Mr. Freed? Go for it.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll go really slow for everyone. No, I actually had two. Parks, Trees, and Rec Board got canceled, and so did the Railroad Depot Board meeting because of Jubilee Days. But I was able to attend Traffic Safety Commission. We had an awesome presentation from Nancy about Robert's Rules. I think it's my third or fourth time. I'm starting to pick it up. And then we also had a presentation about the 10-year traffic study that will be going on and talking about public transportation. It was really informative. And like I said earlier, there's some new members of the Traffic Safety Commission, so it was great to have a full house. That's all I got.
Super. All right. Councilor Lockhart.
Your Vice Mayor. Planning Commission a week ago Monday, it was basically about a PSA digital sign in front of the courthouse. And they had brought two new options to the table, and it's still not done. So to be continued. Then the Albany County Tourism Board meeting yesterday was canceled.
All right. Councilor Newman.
No update.
Let's go ahead and go to Mayor Cumby.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I had a meeting with the airport board, and I guess the summary is they continue to be focused on revenue stream and are really making some significant adjustments where the airport is moving toward sustainability, and that's a very primary goal. The second thing that I think is significant that they're doing is beginning to meet with some of the groups that were having difficulty with the changes. They're meeting with them on a regular basis to try and iron some of that out. So not only are they working on revenue stream, but they're also working on community relations. And I had a civil service meeting, and that just went through its process. I don't need to report on that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Moving on to Councilor O'Doherty.
The Environmental Advisory Committee meets the first Thursday of August, and I believe Councilor Freed is going to cover for me because I will be in Alaska. But they asked me, they're concentrating on solid waste and reducing solid waste and the survey that they did, but they ask, are there things that we would like them to work on? And I chimed in with my idea, which is, we have a lot of expertise about composting in Laramie, and since food waste is a lot of what causes greenhouse emissions, it would be nice to hear what these master gardeners and such, how they're composting in Laramie. And also I was thinking from the soup kitchen, because they do a lot of food recovery, so I was thinking a seminar, something like that, that maybe EAC would organize. But then I realized I'm just the liaison, and I'm not supposed to dictate what they do. So I would love to hear, or they would love to hear ideas and what we would like them to focus their attention on. So I don't know, I guess Councilor Freed, you could tell either one of us, and we'll make sure they get the information. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Great. Councilor Shumway.
No updates.
Councilor Vigil.
Councilor Bowling, thank you so much for joining me today during our Human Rights and Relations interviews. We held two really great interviews for two 25 and under candidates, and yeah, we're really excited. They were both amazing. I'm like, how do we change it to get like more? Yeah, it was a whole thing this afternoon. So just really excited. We have so many awesome young people in our community, and so I'm really I was just really pleased. Thanks.
Great. Councilor Bowling.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Only report is that last week was the Emergency Planning Commission meeting. Pretty quick meeting. Got a couple updates from Emergency Management, Public Health, Laramie Fire Department. A little bit about the firework making material incident and actually how well that joint task force response happened. So I'm proud of our city responders for that. And then just two reports, one on Civil Air Patrol, which is geared towards, younger folks. So if anyone has under 18 children interested in kind of that, getting into that program, I can give them more information. And then the last one was from the Wyoming Air National Guard, and it was just about some of the mission-ready packages that can be deployed across the state as necessary should they be required, and what those costs are. So that's all there is to report.
Great, thank you. And I attended the Pilot Hill meeting where they are thinking about sustainability and also continuing to create more trails and do great things. So that was pretty fun. They're going to have a kickoff event, I believe, in September to celebrate the new parking area. I attended the Housing Coalition meeting on 7/14. I am part of the data collection group, and our survey that went out, I believe the number that came back, we have had like 640, I'm kind of making that number up. It's over 600 responses, which is great. We were hoping to get about 400, and so that's positive. That coalition should do a wrap-up event in August, but then thinking about then what are next steps to keep the conversations going. Let me see, DDA was canceled this week. Our RFP went out for thinking about downtown planning, and so that there'll be more updates as we get more information back on that. And I think that is it. Any other things from you, City Manager or City Clerk? All right, with that, we can adjourn. Thanks for sticking here. Oh, man. Yeah, it's Fifth Tuesday, so we don't have agenda review.